Hey truckers, here is part 5 of the guide to conquering Earthlings. Let's dive into the video. She didn't understand why Zhang Wei was so reluctant to come out and have a meal together. After all, the dishes at this hotel's restaurant were delicious, and Wei Jin had said he would treat them, so there was no need to worry about money. She simply indulged in the food. Wei Jin wasn't as terrifying as Zhang Wei had described. This bald middle-aged man, although initially surprised to see Shi, quickly smiled warmly. "Yun Fei, you're really generous." He squinted his eyes slightly, looking at Shi's face. "This collaboration, I'm sure it will succeed." After speaking, he enthusiastically invited Shi, "Come, eat something first. Order whatever you want, I'll pay. Don't call me Mr. Wei. Just call me Brother Zhen. We'll have a few drinks with Brother Zhen later. As long as you're with Brother Zhen, you can have whatever you want in the future." How could anyone say that Wei Jin was a bad person? Shi felt that Zhang Wei must have some misunderstanding. But Shi didn't hesitate and immediately started ordering dishes. Naturally, Shi's appetite was quite astonishing. Wei Jin's expression became somewhat suspicious as he saw the increasing number of empty bowls in front of Shi. Aren't you worried about stomach discomfort or your figure changing when you eat so much?" He looked at Shi's chest and abdomen with concern, and his eyes dimmed for a moment. "Do you have any secret to maintain such a good figure while eating like this?" A secret? She certainly had one. As she stuffed her mouth with food, she enthusiastically shared, "My secret is to do some exercise after eating well." "What kind of exercise? Running, yoga, or swimming?" "What kind of exercise?" Turning Xie Cheng's doorknob, helping Director Wu split the golden-threaded Nanmu, shattering diamonds, these were Shi's exercises. They required much more energy and physical strength than ordinary people walking or running. But obviously, these were not the kind of normal exercises that were worth mentioning. According to the guidebook, if faced with a difficult question, one could use to evade it. Therefore, Shi pursed her lips and smiled at Wei Jin, putting it into practice. "Of course, it's not running, yoga, or swimming. As for what kind of exercise it is, Wei Jin was overjoyed. Of course, he knew. They had already reached this point. Wasn't it the exercise in bed? He probed, "So, for the exercise you mentioned, do you prefer to be active or have someone else be active? Could exercise involve someone else being active?" She found it bewildering, but patiently explained, "I prefer to take the initiative." Wei Jin was ecstatic at this response. Xie Yunfei was exactly what he desired. Not only did she arrange for such a stunning beauty to accompany him, but she also took the lead. Before Wei Jin even had a chance to make a move, she had already hinted at it herself. Wei Jin dismissed any doubts he had about Shi's appetite. After all, wasn't the reason she ate so much because they were going to have an intense battle in bed until dawn? Shouldn't she consume more energy for that? With her taking the lead, it seemed like he didn't even need to resort to drugging her drink. The main focus was consensual pleasure between them. During the meal, Wei Jin found Shi increasingly endearing, and Shi found Wei Jin more and more pleasing to the eye. Throughout the evening, Wei Jin attentively served Shi, constantly offering her dishes. It was only after Shi had eaten and drunk her fill that she noticed her superior, Zhang Wei, who had accompanied them, had already left. So far, it had been a delightful evening until something happened that made Shi uncomfortable. Wei Jin suddenly moved his chair next to Shi and reached out to touch her hand. "Your skin is so smooth and delicate," he said, while his other hand wrapped around her shoulder and slowly moved downward, intending to reach her chest. The slimy and repulsive touch felt like an ugly crawling snake. This made Lan Shi extremely uncomfortable, and she quickly stopped his advances and pulled her hand away. Wei Jin remained unperturbed and chuckled, "My enthusiasm got the best of me." Although he retracted his hand, his gaze remained fixated on Lan Shi's chest. "With your proportions, it must be 90-60-90, right? Such a large bust, slender waist, and alluring curves. It's exactly my type." Wei Jin had a few drinks and was feeling a bit lightheaded. He couldn't resist making provocative remarks. As Lan Shi listened, her brows furrowed. She finally agreed with Zhang Wei's assessment of Wei Jin. This guy was terrible. Just as she was about to get up and leave, Wei Jin grabbed her hand and slipped a room key into it. "Let's go. We've eaten enough, it's time for some exercise." Wei Jin was becoming impatient. He whispered to Lan Shi, "Once we're in the room, we can do whatever we want." Lan Shi flexed her wrist and looked at Wei Jin's greasy face. She felt that she indeed needed some physical activity to work off her frustration. She confirmed, "Anything goes? Any position?" "Look at that, he was a professional." Wei Jin loved straightforwardness like this. He squinted at Lan Shi, revealing a self-proclaimed sexy expression, and mimicking the charm of a dashing gentleman from TV dramas, he said in a deep and alluring voice, "Yes, any position will do. Once we're in the room, I'll comply with your wishes and let you do as you please." Wei Jin grew more excited as he spoke. "I also have some mood-enhancing substances, highly sought after on the black market. They'll make you feel incredibly high, beyond words. I've secretly given them to a few women before, and oh my, the experience was truly indescribable." Lan Shi ignored the unrelated parts of his words and simply confirmed once again, "So, if I go to the room, I can do whatever I want to you?" Wei Jin smiled, quite fond of Lan Shi's little playful gesture, and nodded, "Of course." Xia Qing rushed to the hotel in a hurry. On the way, he had already obtained the room number from Zhang Wei, his former boss. At this moment, Xia Qing didn't think of anything else. He had only one thought in his mind: he didn't want Lan Shi to get hurt. But he was still a step too late. When he finally arrived at the door of the room and heard the muffled and indescribable sounds coming from inside, his heart sank completely. Unfortunately, Wei Jin inside the room clearly didn't consider Xia Qing's feelings and continued to make noises. "Ah. Oh. I can't take it anymore, I'm going to die. Ah. I'm dying. I'm ascending to heaven, I'm really ascending. Ah. Help. I'm going to lose my life. Ah. The sounds were mixed with moans and the continuous movement of the bed. The soundproofing of this hotel room was obviously poor, and even though there was a door separating them, Xia Qing could clearly hear the commotion inside. The answer to what those sounds were was self-evident. He had arrived too late. Xia Qing clenched his fists, disregarding everything else, and kicked open the door before rushing in. He had imagined the scene inside and had already prepared his fist for Wei Jin, but when he actually saw the scene in the room, he was completely stunned. On the messy bed, Wei Jin was tied up and pinned down by Lan Shi, and she was hitting him. His face was already swollen like a pig's head, and his voice was hoarse from intense shouting. At this moment, when he saw someone breaking in, he looked at Xia Qing almost pleadingly. "Help! Brother! Help me! Call the police!" His face was covered in snot and tears, and he looked miserable as he said, "If this goes on, I'm going to be beaten to death. I'm really going to ascend to heaven." After speaking, in response to Lan Shi's next strike, he let out a distant and suppressed ah, and the bed shook rhythmically with Lan Shi's intense movements. And Lan Shi, sweating profusely from her vigorous actions, greeted Xia Qing friendly while her movements didn't stop. "What a coincidence, Xia Qing. We meet in the most unexpected places." As she spoke, she accompanied it with a few miserable cries from Wei Jin. "Ah. Ah, ah." The bed shook even more violently, as if it was about to fall apart. Perhaps Xie Cheng's expression of shock was too intense. Lan Shi finally stopped her actions and kindly explained, "I'm hitting him with his permission, so don't worry, it's definitely legal. I have a strong sense of the rule of law now." Wei Jin, in tears, said, "I didn't agree to this, brother, save me." After she entered the room, she started beating me mercilessly. "After I get out of here, I'm going to make sure she goes to jail." Lan Shi was a bit angry. "Why are you so fickle?" Luckily, I already anticipated this, so I recorded the evidence. After Lan Shi finished speaking, she took out her phone and played the recorded audio. Wei Jin's voice was clear and loud. "Any position is fine. Once we're in the room, I'll comply with your wishes, and you can do whatever you want. I also have some recreational drugs, highly valued in the black market. They'll make you high beyond measure. I secretly drugged a few women before, and oh boy, let me tell you, it was incredible." Lan Shi felt proud as she looked at Xie Cheng. "Did you hear that? He said himself that once we're in the room, I can do whatever I want to him, any position I desire." She pointed at Wei Jin, who was tied up on the bed. "I like the position of tying him up and beating him. He allowed me to beat him however I want. If I beat him like this, I won't have any legal responsibility, right?" "No," Xie Cheng's expression turned grim, his lips tightly pursed. "He should bear the legal responsibility himself. After all, he admitted buying unknown drugs with stimulating effects and secretly putting them in other people's food." Xie Cheng glanced at Lan Shi. "As for you, it is self-defense." Wei Jin, with his head beaten into a pig's head, remained silent. Xie Cheng paused, rubbed his temples, and cleared his throat, driven by the principle of being sincere. Perhaps there was a slight excessive force in self-defense. At this point, he looked at Lan Shi with a sense of relief, as if he had survived a catastrophe. Fortunately, although Lan Shi was heartbroken, she still had her sanity and wouldn't assault someone who rejected her. However, considering her feelings towards herself, Lan Shi probably couldn't bear to harm herself. Xie Cheng called Chowan to clean up the aftermath and then took Lan Shi away from the scene of the incident. He took her for a leisurely walk along the lakeside path in the hotel garden, under the night sky. However, his heart rate, which was supposed to calm down, didn't seem to improve significantly. In this quiet environment, he was constantly worried that even his heartbeat would be exposed. After struggling to restrain himself for a long time, Xie Cheng finally regained his composure. He needed to talk to Lan Shi about how to love herself. Directly discussing emotions and Xie Yunfei wasn't a good choice, especially after what happened with Wei Jin. After giving it some thought, Xie Cheng decided to find a more approachable entry point. "Are you feeling a bit uncomfortable in your stomach right now?" Liang Di mentioned that Lan Shi hadn't eaten or drank anything for several days due to her heartbreak. And just now, she had exerted a lot of physical energy. At this moment, she was probably exhausted. Xie Cheng's guess was correct, and Lan Shi raised her head, somewhat surprised. "How did you know?" "I know." Xie Cheng pursed his lips and slowed his pace. "So, do you want me to accompany you for a meal?" Lan Shi was indeed feeling uncomfortable in her stomach. She had eaten too much in her excitement tonight. Although she had exercised vigorously with Wei Jin, her stomach was still having trouble digesting the food. If Xie Cheng hadn't mentioned it, Lan Shi might have been fine. But now, her previously mild stomach discomfort became more evident. She waved her hand repeatedly, clutching her waist, and said, "No more, no more." Little did she know that in Xie Cheng's eyes, everything looked completely different. Lan Shi, who had always loved to eat, was now pressing her stomach with a pained expression. Her voice sounded weak, almost like a wisp of air, and her complexion wasn't looking too good. It was clear that she was weak from hunger, and she could barely stand up straight. You have to eat something, otherwise, it's not good for your health. You can eat as much as you want, and I'll pay for it. I really can't eat anymore. I can't even take another bite, I'll throw up if I do. This was a fairly normal response, but for some reason, as soon as Lan Shi finished speaking, Xie Cheng's face revealed a hidden guilt and a more complex, difficult-to-read emotion. He remained silent, pursing his lips for a moment before taking a deep breath and speaking again. You'll develop stomach problems if you continue like this. Even if you're in a bad mood, life goes on, and you shouldn't neglect your own body so lightly. After being hungry for several days, it wasn't advisable to suddenly indulge in a large meal. It had to be done gradually. If one refrained from eating and drinking for too long, it could even lead to anorexia nervosa, especially considering Lan Shi's lack of appetite and existing psychological factors. Xie Cheng thought for a moment and decided that it would be best to find a psychologist to address her post-breakup stress from its root cause. He needed to find an opportunity to talk to her about it. Xie Cheng glanced at Lan Shi and then averted his gaze, clearing his throat. Oh, by the way, the team-building activity that we've been postponing will take place this weekend. We'll be going to the beach for a barbecue, and there's also a seaside amusement park. It's a small benefit for the employees. Would you like to come? He paused for a moment and quickly added, mainly because your employment relationship is still under the umbrella of Qingxin, so when the administration calculates staff benefits, you're also included. And since the beach barbecue area is quite spacious, even if all the Qingxin people attend, there will still be plenty of seats available. So, for this team-building event, you can also bring your family and friends. Ye Fei Ran reminds you that the Earthlings Guide to Conquest updates first on, remember. Lan Shi's eyes lit up. Really? I can bring my family and friends too? Xie Cheng nodded. Yes. Then I'll join. However, Lan Shi quickly thought of a problem. But by the weekend, my transfer process will definitely be complete, and I won't be under Qingxin anymore. Is it still appropriate for me to go to the beach team-building event? Xie Cheng cleared his throat and appeared magnanimous. The venue is large enough, and I want it to be lively. So, having one more person like you won't be a problem. After all, you have worked here before, and you are familiar with your colleagues. You know that our employees have a good atmosphere. Of course, I understand your desire for a change of environment. Besides, it's natural for young people to explore different positions. But if you're not happy and find it difficult to adapt, and you want to come back, that's also possible. I won't judge you or create obstacles for you just because you were transferred. Even if you decide to come back after a few days, I can understand. Xie Cheng huffed coldly, especially considering the atmosphere in your new job doesn't seem great. Otherwise, why would you be entertaining such low-level clients like Wei Jin? If I were your boss, I would never collaborate with someone like him just for the sake of money. Wei Jin is all right. It's been a while since I've hit someone, and I've been itching for it. Luckily, he was there. Maybe it was specially arranged by President Yun Fei for me. Lan Shi pondered for a moment and sincerely said, and Xie Yunfei's salary is higher, and he has fewer responsibilities. That's why I don't want to come back, she concluded. But I do want to attend the team-building activity by the seaside. Although Xie Cheng was the one who initially invited Lan Shi, his current expression couldn't be described as particularly pleasant or welcoming. After a while, he seemed to be suppressing some emotions and made an effort to speak calmly. Take some time to experience it for yourself. Some jobs may appear to offer more money and less work on the surface, but once you start doing them, you'll discover hidden costs and pressures. Qingxin doesn't engage in superficial projects to deceive people, unlike some companies and bosses who dig pits and wait for you to fall into them. Rubbing his temples, Xia Qing, as if trying to slow down his emotions, looked at Lan Shi again and said, "Let's not discuss these matters for now. It's getting late, and while I'm still here, is there anything else you need me to do?" Lan Shi thought for a moment and suddenly remembered something. "We haven't paid the bill at the restaurant earlier. Originally, we agreed to put it on Wei Xin's tab, but since he's inconvenienced now, would he refuse to pay?" "I'll take care of it," Xia Qing replied without hesitation. Even if Wei Xin wanted to pay, he wouldn't allow it. "Wait here for me and don't wander around." After instructing Lan Shi, Xia Qing obtained the table number from her and turned to enter the restaurant. The server was very efficient, saying, "Sir, the bill for table chapter 3 is here." Xia Qing took out his credit card, but just as he was about to hand it over to the server, she added with a smile, "The total amount is 136,800 yuan, and we also charge a 16% service fee." 136,800 yuan? Xia Qing froze. Wasn't table chapter 3 for 3 people? It was supposed to be under Wei Xin's name. Did you make a mistake? Oh, yes, it was indeed for 3 people. Here are the detailed itemized charges. The server paused for a moment and added, "That young lady ate like a professional foodie. She seemed like a big eater." At this point, the server's eyes revealed a hint of envy. "But she's really beautiful, and she has a great figure." Xia Qing had lost interest in these matters. He took the bill and examined the breakdown of expenses. 18 bowls of ao noodles, 9 pig elbows, 13 pieces of walnut pastry, 27 squab, 8 servings of mung bean soup, 35 lion's head meatballs. He looked up. "Did that girl eat all of this?" The server nodded. "Yes, sir. She's the most professional foodie I've ever seen." "It's impressive." Liang Di mentioned that because of heartbreak, he had lost his appetite for food and tea. What kind of heartbreak is this? Xia Qing felt that in the entire universe, there was no one with a better appetite than Lan Shi. Recently, Xia Yunfei felt Spring Breeze proud. He thought his charm was indeed invincible. Even if Xia Qingyu met him, he would have no chance at all. Wasn't it that Xia Qingyu's beautiful female employee Lan Shi took the initiative to apply for a transfer to his side as an assistant after being provoked by him? After he gets her and plays with her, wouldn't it be just around the corner? Of course, this was not the most exhilarating thing for Xia Yunfei. He had always been scolded by Xia Jing for not working hard and unable to make achievements. But this time, it was as if heaven wanted to help him. Xia Yunfei was given a big gift at a dinner party a few days ago. He met Wei Xin, an important client of Xia Qingyu's company. Over drinks, Xia Yunfei quickly learned about the strength of Wei Xin's company. He also learned from other channels the reason why Xia Qingyu gave up the good cooperation. He almost laughed out loud. What a 24K pure gold fool was Xia Qingyu. For a big client like Wei Xin who paid on time, he just wanted to have some fun with women. Why not just satisfy him? Xia Qingyu didn't want the money, but he did. It was just about arranging a female employee with decent looks to receive him. In the company, couldn't they find a female employee without money or power? As for what happened during the reception, Xia Yunfei felt that everything could be negotiated. After all, he had received Wei Xin's order, which was tens of millions in profits. Taking out 10 or 20 million from it and giving it to the female employee, how could the deal not be reached? It was just that the contract he had been waiting for did not take the initiative to find him at all. Wei Xin even blacklisted his contact information. What the hell is going on? Boss Xia, I contacted Mr. Wei, and he said to forget about the contract. He said he would pay the medical expenses himself, and it was kind enough from him to swallow this dark loss. I don't know what exactly happened, but I heard that Mr. Wei was beaten up with fractures all over his body and is currently hospitalized. But what does this have to do with us? Xia Yunfei also didn't know what this had to do with them, but in order to get close to Wei Jin, he had treated Wei Jin to dinner and drinks before, and had spent a lot of money down the drain. But fortunately, every disappointment is a blessing. Although his career was frustrated, Xia Yunfei had never failed with women. After a while, he received a call from Lan Shi. The other party asked him to go to the beach together on the weekend. What did it mean for two people to go to the beach on the weekend? Wasn't it a further suggestion? Wearing a bikini and applying sunscreen on the beach, blowing the sea breeze, having an ambiguous look in the eyes, how ambiguous could it be? Hugging the waist on the beach, drinking little cocktails, wouldn't the relationship continue to develop at night? Xia Yunfei didn't hesitate for a second. He already had several plans to take Lan Shi down in one fell swoop, and readily agreed to her invitation. That weekend, Xia Qingyu arrived at the beach early in the morning. Chaowen was very puzzled by this. Wasn't there still an email to deal with in the morning? The preparation work has been done by the administrative department. We don't actually need to come so early. Xia Qingyu neither affirmed nor denied, nothing. Coming to the seaside to blow the sea breeze, I can also reply to emails here, get close to nature. But looking at the phone screen under such glaring sunlight is bad for your eyes. No. Xia Qingyu was very sure. The outdoor light is very good for the eyes, and the light supplements vitamin D3, which can supplement calcium and prevent osteoporosis when old. But your eyes look like they can't stand it anymore. I see they are red. No way. After Xia Qingyu finished speaking, under Chaowen's gaze, he forcibly maintained his composure and restrained himself from rubbing his already sore eyes with his hands. Fortunately, the email was quickly replied, and some new employees of Shinshin had arrived on the beach. But Lan Shi was not here. Xia Qingyu didn't know what was going on with himself. Chaowen was right. He didn't need to arrive at the beach so early, but on a rare morning when he could sleep in lazily, his heart was driven by a mysterious force, and he got up early. Then his hands and feet seemed to have a will of their own. When he reacted again, his feet were already standing on the beach in front of him. It must be his usual discipline that made him get up early. The few new Shinshin employees who arrived early brought their girlfriends or boyfriends. After laughing and greeting Xia Qingyu, they held hands in pairs and walked slowly along the long coastline. It was originally stipulated by Xia Qingyu that family members or friends could be brought, but now he felt a little regretful. Because when thinking of couples and love, Xia Qingyu inevitably thought of Lan Shi. In fact, it was only one day since he last saw her, but Xia Qingyu felt like years had passed. Shinshin and Xianen had independent office buildings, and now there was basically no business cooperation, so Xia Qingyu didn't get any news about Lan Shi during the day. However, the less so, the more uneasy he became. Xia Qingyu knew very well what kind of person Xia Yunfei was. Lan Shi looked so beautiful, and she was even willing to cooperate in the car, plus her naive perception of social interaction and interpersonal relationships. Who knew how Xia Yunfei had taken advantage of her in just one day? Of course, Lan Shi was an adult and an independent individual. Even if she indulged herself after the breakup, it was her freedom. But Xia Qingyu's mood was inexplicably complicated. From his point of view, after being rejected by him, Lan Shi did not pester him again, which was a good thing, but Xia Qingyu felt that he didn't seem to want to see Lan Shi like this at all. He was very unhappy. Because Lan Shi was not a bad girl. Her bumpy life in the first half of her life was gloomy enough, and she deserved a brighter future. Xie Qingyu hoped to see Lan Shi and hoped that Lan Shi could be within his sight to ensure that she was safe. But at least he didn't have to worry about it today, because she would come to participate in the company team building event. But why was she so slow? Wasn't she quite fast before? Other employees of Xinshan had almost arrived, so why hadn't she arrived yet? Lan Shi. Xie Qingyu was wandering in his thoughts. With Liang Di's voice, he looked towards the not-too-far place and finally saw Lan Shi's figure. She wore a comfortable pink sportswear, with a pair of sneakers on her feet, her hair tied in a ponytail, full of grace and vigor, beautiful and a little different from usual, fresh and cute. Very beautiful. But apparently, Xie Qingyu was not the only one who thought so. Around him, several single male employees also looked at Lan Shi with the same appreciative eyes. Chowan, I see Meng Xin and the others have nothing to do now. Let them be responsible for taking inventory of drinks, confirming the preparation list of ingredients, and make some extra purchases of sunscreen. Chowan agreed, and soon walked towards those few idle male employees. Soon, these male employees who were idle scattered to work. There were so many people on the beach, so many men standing together, it was naturally hotter. No wonder the air was so thin just now. Now that people were gone, Xie Qingyu indeed felt refreshed. He looked at Lan Shi again, but before he could feel refreshed for a few more seconds, Xie Qingyu's attention was attracted by a figure behind Lan Shi. The man wore comfortable couple sportswear as well, and the exact same couple sneakers as Lan Shi's, even the sun hats were couple ones. Xie Qingyu looked at the coming person and could not believe his eyes. Xie Qingyu. Not only was the perpetrator not ashamed at all, but he even waved his hand enthusiastically when he saw Xie Qingyu and greeted him. It's a coincidence that I have a date but don't know where to go. Your beach team building event happened to enthusiastically invite me, so I'm here. When she said this, she pointed to the man next to her. You said you wanted a livelier atmosphere, so I thought about it and called Boss Xie to liven things up for you too. Lan Shi said with a smile again, don't be so surprised to see me. I have always been so thoughtful. After speaking, she patted Xie Qingyu on the shoulder, don't thank me. Before Xie Qingyu could react, he saw Lan Shi look around the beach environment, revealing a leader's satisfied look after inspection. It's not bad here. She smiled at Xie Qingyu again, you organized it quite well. Yes, very good. Not only finding someone to come, but finding Xie Yunfei. Ah. There's ice cream over there. I'm going to get one. Lan Shi was quickly distracted by the ice cream, leaving only Xie Qing and Xie Yunfei looking at each other. Qingyan is going bankrupt? Reduced to needing to take advantage of Qingshin's employee benefits to go on dates? Xie Qing threw out these words and walked away. Xie Yunfei was also completely unprepared for everything happening in front of him. This was clearly not the romantic beach date he had imagined. What was Lan Shi thinking bringing him to a team-building event? Not only did he have to endure Xie Qing's disdain and mockery, but many Qingshin employees were also casting suspicious glances at him, wondering why he was there. But Xie Yunfei's troubles were clearly just beginning, as he soon realized that his retribution was only just starting. I now declare the Qingshin Technology Seize the Day Walking the Good Road team-building event officially begun. Before we start the barbecue and free activities, we will first have everyone participate in beach cleanup on this golden beach, to better promote environmental awareness and showcase Qingshin Technology's consistent sense of social responsibility and employees' positive image of giving back. The event host kept rambling enthusiastically. Oh, Chairman Xie just added a bonus. For this beach cleanup activity, gifts will be awarded at the end based on number of pieces of trash collected. The top performer can get a 1-year all-you-can-eat dinner voucher for the Ritz Hotel. Xie Yunfei just wanted to roll his eyes. Who could tell him why this crappy team-building activity even involved picking up trash? He looked at the cleanup supplies and tools they were given and was at a complete loss for words. He had styled his hair, sprayed on cologne, picked out his swimsuit, and even applied a face mask this morning, only for this? But it was fine, he didn't have to participate in this team-building activity. He could just take Lan Shi away. His charm certainly couldn't lose to picking up trash, right? Yet reality seemed intent on slapping him in the face. Xia Yunfei tried every trick up his sleeve to get Lan Shi to ditch the trash pickup and go off with just him, but Lan Shi directly refused. Then go play by yourself. I want to pick up trash. Seeing Xia Yunfei's embarrassed expression in the distance, Xiaqing felt his mood improve a little. Indeed, as soon as he announced rewards for the person who collected the most trash, Lan Shi immediately rolled up her sleeves and got to work. Nothing was more attractive to Lan Shi than a year's all-you-can-eat dining voucher. From the moment he had the host make that announcement, Xiaqing clearly saw Lan Shi's eyes light up eagerly. She couldn't see anything else now. Her enthusiasm for food really was. Xiaqing couldn't help but recall his shock the first time he took Lan Shi to an all-you-can-eat buffet. Although she had a slender figure, her appetite rivaled that of competitive eaters in eating broadcasts. He smiled involuntarily. At this moment, she was seriously combing the beach under the sun, diligently searching for trash. In fact, the beach cleanup environmental theme this time was just something the administrative staff had tacked on for publicity when planning the team-building activities of eating, drinking, and having fun to let employees relax. At the same time, it allowed them to generate some positive corporate image news. Xiaqing had also separately donated charity funds under the company's name to related environmental protection organizations. As for the current trash pickup, employees could participate if interested, but it wasn't mandatory. These were almost unspoken rules in the workplace that most employees followed. After picking up a few bottles and cans to throw away, most people had washed their hands clean and were now blowing in the sea breeze. The only one still seriously and wholeheartedly picking up trash was Lan Shi. Yes, Lan Shi had always been unaware of many of the unspoken rules in the workplace and life. She had a kind of naive silliness, not understanding implied meanings, only the most straightforward language. Her heart didn't have the many twists and turns, so when told to pick up trash to protect the environment with rewards, she truly devoted herself wholeheartedly to picking up trash. It was a hot sunny day today, and as time passed, the sunlight grew more scorching. Lan Shi's fair face had turned red from the heat, and Xiaqing could see beads of sweat continuously forming and trickling down her jawline. Yet she only pursed her lips tightly, quietly persisting in picking up the carelessly discarded aluminum cans on the beach one by one. Xia Yunfei had initially pretended to participate half-heartedly, but his unexercised body soon couldn't take it anymore. Xiaqing saw impatience appear on his face. Sure enough, he soon made up an excuse to slip away to a nearby sunshade to take shelter from the heat. And perhaps it was Xia Yunfei's innate feeling of romantic abandon, but before long after standing under the sunshade he was already chatting up a woman wearing a sexy bikini with an incredible figure. What kind of man with such poor health and personality could Lan Shi have decided to use as her stand-in? If you like me, why eat such a cheap, inferior substitute meal? Xia Yunfei was now engrossed in conversation with the hot girl, completely forgetting about his surroundings, while Lan Shi walked further down the beach persistently and seriously picking up bottles. Xiaqing felt mixed emotions churning inside him, and his feet seemed to move toward Lan Shi on their own accord. But what would he do when he got over there? Xiaqing didn't know either. Lan Shi liked him so much that after being rejected she had hurt herself to escape reality, ruining her body to find a substitute to digest the bitterness in her heart. So what could Xiaqing change by going over? It would be better to rip off the bandage quickly, to let her accept it faster, get over it faster, and stay away from trash like Xia Yunfei faster. She was picking up trash now anyway, which was still better than being with trash. So Xiaqing slowly followed behind Lanshi, matching her pace as they walked along the beach. He also held the beach cleanup tools and, just like Lanshi, picked up the trash others had discarded on the beach. With the pressure from multiple fronts in the days leading up to the meteorological system going online, Xiaqing's emotions had remained very tense. Even coming to the beach today for team building, he still felt rather irritable. However, right now, drenched in sweat in the scorching sun, picking up trash and blowing in the sea breeze while listening to the sound of the waves and tides lapping at the beach, Xiaqing suddenly and unexpectedly felt a sense of calm. Picking up bottles at this slow pace didn't actually seem to be something unbearable. But Xiaqing's tranquility didn't last very long before he was interrupted by the sound of screaming. "Help! Save my boyfriend!" He got swept away by the waves. Following the shouts, Xiaqing looked up to find that the previously peaceful beach was now clearly chaotic and frenzied. A girl who looked like she had narrowly escaped drowning was deathly pale as she desperately sought help. "Please, my boyfriend and I were floating in the water surfing just now." The sea surface seemed very calm, but suddenly a rush of water came over which immediately separated us. I barely managed to grab the surfboard and get pushed back to shore by the waves, but my boyfriend hasn't come back. I watched as he got swept out to sea. Can any of you go save him? There were also a few guys holding surfboards around the girl with helpless looks on their faces. I just saw your boyfriend, one of them said. But the waves were too big. I wanted to save him but nearly got swept away myself. You really can't save him. You two ran into a rip current just now. Your boyfriend has likely already been swept out to the open ocean. You need to contact professional rescue services. Let me call the police first. The girl was nearly crying now, but it'll be too late waiting for professional rescue services. The girl ran towards Lanshi again. Xiaqing followed her gaze to see that not far behind Lanshi was a muscular man walking. The girl was evidently trying to seek his help, but after a few exchanges, he showed a look of difficulty and clearly turned her down. Perhaps desperate for any help, or thinking Lanshi was that man's companion, the panicking girl suddenly grabbed Lanshi's arm pleading for help. Although she was still asking for help, despair was evident on the girl's face. She likely no longer expected to get any positive response from Lanshi. Xiaqing felt regretful, as his own swimming skills were poor. He also deeply understood the danger of rip currents, so he couldn't recklessly attempt a rescue himself. He had just been about to go over to comfort the girl and help extricate Lanshi when he saw Lanshi chat with the girl briefly before suddenly neatly putting down the large bag of trash she had picked up. She looked around and quickly spotted Xiaqing. "Xiaqing!" Lanshi revealed a "that's great," kind of relieved smile, beaming to reveal 8 teeth. "You helped me keep an eye on the trash I picked up." At this moment, not only was her face flushed red, even her petite nose was also sunburned red, because she was focused on picking up trash under the raging sun, with sweat beads clinging to her eyelashes as well, looking somewhat disheveled. In order to avoid the glaring sunlight, her eyes curved into a long crescent shape, with what seemed like a reflection of the entire sun in her pupils. Xiaqing's heart seemed to be pierced by some invisible arrow. However, before he could discern this emotion, Lanshi suddenly turned and walked towards the ocean waves. Looking back, she smiled at the crying and panic-stricken girl. "Wait for me, I'll go save him." After dropping these words, Lanshi dove straight into the sea. After a few waves, Xiaqing saw her tiny figure being completely obscured by the huge wave. It felt almost instantaneous that Xiaqing lost all sound around him. His mind went blank, as if becoming a vacuum. After standing stunned for a moment, he finally reacted with numb hands and feet to what Lanshi had just done. But it was too late for everything. As if just waking from a dream, Xiaqing frantically ran to the shoreline, but Lanshi had already been pushed far out to the open ocean by the waves. Even very good swimmers would find it extremely difficult to survive in a rip current, let alone attempt to rescue someone from it. This fool! Xiaqing completely lost his earlier composure. He borrowed a surfboard from a passing surf instructor and intended to rush into the sea as well. Lan Shi had just left, so there might still be hope if he hurried to catch up. I'll give you guys money, as much as you want. Please help me rescue the girl who just left. Xiaqing had never been more grateful in this moment for the wealth he possessed. He desperately tried to stay calm and successfully called 2 more surf instructors to prepare to enter the sea together and rescue Lan Shi. She's back! Saved her! They're fine! But just as Xiaqing was about to rush into the waters without regard for anything, someone suddenly shouted in pleasant surprise. Xiaqing reflexively looked in the direction of the voice and saw a tremendously thrilling scene. In the churning waves, Lan Shi was struggling to swim against the current, and grasped firmly in one of her hands was an unconscious man she had found. She really managed to locate and retrieve the person. By now, Lan Shi had already carried the person out of the rip current area and was strenuously swimming forward. Xiaqing no longer hesitated and immediately entered the water himself. The surf instructors were also encouraged and took action, eventually catching up to Lan Shi as she neared the shore. With everyone working together, the unconscious man was soon rescued and his girlfriend almost cried tears of joy. A few people surrounded the man and started CPR first aid procedures. Some were dialing 120, and some were taking videos or contacting the police. The scene was chaotic. In contrast, the area around Lan Shi seemed deserted. Because she was in good condition while the other rescued man clearly needed emergency care, naturally the focus of the crowd in such an urgent situation would be on the weaker patient who needed more assistance. However, watching Lan Shi alone wiping the water from her forehead looking nonchalant, Xiaqing felt his emotions surging wildly like 1,000 horses crossing his heart. She acted so casually as if she didn't just risk her life to save a stranger, appearing utterly composed as if she had simply gone for a dip in the sea. She seemed confused about why Xiaqing was also drenched. Glancing up at the sky she asked, "It didn't even rain earlier, right?" F0 low new hapters at nov/el/bin/.com. Do you have any idea how dangerous that was just now? Xiaqing tried his best to restrain his emotions. That was a rip current. But I'm very strong, you know. Didn't I safely bring the person back? Even if you're strong, your first priority should always be protecting yourself. However, Xiaqing felt frustrated and angry inside while the culprit Lan Shi didn't seem concerned at all. I'm not that weak. I'm very powerful, so I don't need protection. At the same time, under the CPR procedures, the man who nearly drowned briefly had regained consciousness, and cheers erupted from the beach. One of the surf instructors who performed CPR was already starting to take credit. Actually, I also knew the rip current was dangerous, but seeing the situation just now, if I didn't jump in, that man would definitely have died. Luckily, our water skills are great from learning to surf, and our rescue skills are very proficient too. Every instructor at our club gets trained for these kinds of things. In this day and age, there would always be people more interested in showing off and taking opportunities to put on an impromptu performance, when it was clearly Lan Shi who risked her life to haul the man back from the open ocean. Yet now, the one enjoying the fruits of victory and praise was someone else. Even when selflessly risking one's life to save others, gratitude may not, necessarily, be received. Lan Shi gazed towards the noisy beach. Her previously calm expression sank. Indeed, even though she probably hadn't considered much when plunging into danger to rescue the man, it would still be very difficult for anyone to accept this kind of outcome. Perhaps today's events could teach Lan Shi a lesson. Xiaqing felt this was a good opportunity for some on-site education. If she wanted to demand some justice, he would be willing to accompany her. But just as Xiaqing assumed Lan Shi was about to approach the rescued man, she instead stomped over to Xiaqing in anger. Xiaqing! My trash is gone. She fumed. What happened to the trash you promised to keep an eye on for me before I went to rescue that person just now? Now it's all gone. Lan Shi truly seemed furious. Disregarding her drenched state, she bristled like an angry wet cat. You owe me. A whole bag that big. All gone. Clearly her first concern after risking her life to save someone was not herself, but rather the trash. This was a trivial detail Xiaqing hadn't paid attention to at all. Now looking towards where the trash had been placed, the previously bulging bag full of discarded bottles was indeed nowhere to be seen. It had likely been taken away by beach cleaners or scavenging elders. Lan Shi was hopping mad, like a cat getting its tail stomped on. She could dive into a rip current to save a stranger without batting an eye, yet losing a bag of trash now made her reveal an indignant and unwilling expression demanding justice. Xiaqing, you owe me. Such a huge bag. All lost. Dripping wet all over after the rescue but prioritizing not her own sorry state first, but rather the trash and prize coupons she could have gotten was unexpected. Xiaqing suddenly felt like laughing a little. He fetched towels from company admin and draped one over Lan Shi's head. Lan Shi kept scolding and griping, but Xiaqing suddenly felt his mood lifting. Lan Shi had never been an ordinary person. Sometimes she was inconvenient and clumsy, unaware of the hidden rules in society or any subtleties, always focusing on the wrong things, prone to making trouble everywhere and causing all kinds of unexpected situations. She was very troublesome, yet also unexpectedly pure and simple. But perhaps that was fine too. Who said you must care about being thanked after rescuing someone? Who said you can't care more about a bag of trash and prize coupons? This world already has more than enough rules and constraints. Perhaps the smart people forced to abide by them were the truly unintelligent ones. Lan Shi possessed a sort of selfish disregard for other people's life and death that made one feel she was exceptionally obstinate and troublesome, yet also unable to resist wanting to get closer to her at the same time. On the surface she seemed no different from those around her, but was actually completely unlike them. Sticking out awkwardly as if an alien on this planet, yet still making Xiaqing oddly want to approach her, Xiaqing felt his emotions were a bit chaotic. Perhaps when people were idle they would overthink things, so he quickly found something to occupy himself. Since the company was doing a team-building activity and the administration department was in charge of logistics, he arranged for the administrative staff to bring Lan Shi a set of spare women's sportswear from the company for her to change into. He also changed into a men's set himself. Xiaqing's new sportswear was very simple without much design sense, but the fabric was comfortable. Compared to the athletic wear Lan Shi had on before, his set was obviously cheaper, but Xiaqing still felt that such plain and affordable sportswear looked better and more eye-catching on her. After changing, he walked over to Lan Shi as if it was natural and cleared his throat. Since it was me who didn't keep an eye on your trash, I'll take responsibility and issue you meal vouchers for a year's worth of dinner buffets as a reward. No way! Faced with Xiaqing's offer, Lan Shi couldn't help but purse her lips. I don't want something prearranged. The team-building activity isn't over yet. I'll pick up more trash again. If I win I want it fair and square. Giving it to me wouldn't be fair to the other colleagues. After saying that, Lan Shi picked up another set of trash-picking tools and went back to picking up trash under the blazing sun on her own initiative. On this side, Lan Shi was still picking up trash while Xie Yunfei under the sunshade finally remembered that he also had a female companion here. Seeing him reluctantly part from the hot bikini beauty, Xiaqing walked over to Lan Shi a bit impatiently. Why did you change your clothes? This outfit looks so ugly. Hearing his critical tone, Xiaqing said, and why are you still picking up trash? How about we go get some ice cream over there? Unfortunately Lan Shi was clearly unmoved. Xie Yunfei seemed to force himself to follow Lan Shi for a short distance, but soon found an excuse to sneak back to continue flirting with the hot bikini woman. Clearly, he was attracted to Lan Shi's appearance but had no interest or willingness to understand her personality, habits and inner self, and did not bother trying to understand her. Thinking of this, Xie Cheng's heart became inexplicably complicated again. Xie Yunfei was not a good match for Lan Shi. But right now Lan Shi was in the stage of emotional breakdown and self-destruction after the pain of heartbreak. The fact that she could pretend to be calm and talk to him now probably took all her strength already. Most likely she was just seeking Xie Yunfei for emotional transference after being hurt and rejected. Get the latest chapters on n/velben.com. Xie Yunfei was unwilling to accompany Lan Shi. After thinking about it, Xie Cheng still decided to walk over. He told himself that he wasn't going over to accompany Lan Shi either, just that in terms of their work relations, Lan Shi was still his employee. Today's activity was also a company team-building event. If something happened again like her falling into the sea and needing rescue, it would still be his and the company's responsibility. Besides, being the principled and responsible man he was, he couldn't watch Lan Shi walk towards destruction. If she kept seeking someone as bad a match as Xie Yunfei to take advantage of her, Xie Cheng felt that he should step in. Although proposing marriage to him was a bit over the top, if Lan Shi would be that heartbroken at not being able to be with him, maybe he should reconsider, like starting from a place of friendship and slowly developing a romantic relationship. Without the inferior option of Xie Yunfei to fall back on, surely this way Lan Shi could be pulled back from the abyss. And once her emotions calmed down later, it would probably be easier to communicate. After all, it was just dating. As long as marriage was not involved, trying it wasn't completely out of the question. Just as Xie Cheng caught up with Lan Shi, he realized that aside from picking up empty bottles and trash this time, she was also collecting seashells from the beach. "Do you like seashells?" Lan Shi picked them very carefully. She gave an then turned to look at Xie Cheng, eyes bright. It seemed like she had just come up with a wonderful idea. "I'm collecting them for a good purpose." Xie Cheng knew some people collected seashells as a hobby and there were many handcraft tutorials online using seashells as material, so people collecting seashells wasn't uncommon. But Lan Shi was more diligent about it than anyone else. She squatted on the beach digging through the sand. Even very ordinary-looking shells she would pick up, treasuring each one carefully and collecting them solemnly as if they were precious treasures. Feeling somewhat awkward, Xie Cheng glanced at the shoreline not far away. "I happen to be free. Should I help pick some with you too?" "That would be great." Lan Shi's gaze shifted over, staring into Xie Cheng's eyes. She bit her lip and smiled. "Xie Cheng, you're so nice. I'll repay you in the future." With her looking at him like that, Xie Cheng suddenly didn't know what to say next. "Oh, no need to repay me. This is nothing." But Lan Shi insisted firmly, "Why wouldn't I need to repay you? We aren't boyfriend and girlfriend now, so of course I should repay you for the favor." "How could that be? No reward without labor. There must be reciprocity to maintain friendship between people." Lan Shi already had it in mind to return the favor. While picking up shells, she promised enthusiastically, "Rest assured, I'll surprise you with repayment. As long as you help pick more seashells for me." Since this beach had always been a paradise for parent-child trips, many shells had already been picked clean by children. Xie Cheng didn't care about whatever surprise or repayment Lan Shi was talking about. He just hoped to see her happy, so he searched diligently for shells with a workmanlike attitude. Fortunately, effort pays off. Although having to squat on the beach rummaging in an undignified manner, Xie Cheng's dedication soon yielded results as he brought Lan Shi a small box full of seashells. "Just watch what I can do next." Lan Shi was extremely delighted. She took the seashells, then found an open area on the beach to start arranging them. So was she making a shape with the shells on the beach first to take a photo to commemorate before bringing them home to use in crafts? At first Xiaqing couldn't tell what lawn she was making with the shells. She arranged them into a big shape. Not until a moment later did he finally realize it was a big heart shape. Naturally, using seashells to make a heart shape on the beach was commonplace and didn't necessarily signify anything. But Xiaqing's heart still couldn't help speeding up rapidly. After finishing the shell heart shape, Lan Shi found a stick and started writing words in the sand. On the left of the seashell heart, she wrote the character for Lan. And on the right of the shell heart, right before Xiaqing's eyes, calm and unruffled, she wrote the character for Xia. Of course. She still couldn't help doing this. Xiaqing's heart pounded wildly, inexplicably stirred by this bold confession on the beach. That was just like Lan Shi, always exceeding expectations. Last time she made an ignorant mistake creating a memorial service-style confession scene. It seemed after doing her homework this time, using the shells she had picked together with him on the beach to form a heart, then writing both their surnames alongside it, although she didn't say anything else to Xiaqing, this kind of direct yet subtle approach made Xiaqing somewhat caught off guard. Looked like she still couldn't graduate from obsessing over him after all. Xiaqing should have felt somewhat troubled, but at this moment he was totally devoid of such emotions. His heart only held a kind of proud feeling of regaining territory. Even while wanting to move past him in deeds, she still couldn't resist confessing to him again on the beach. How is it? Beautiful? After finishing everything, Lan Shi smiled at Xiaqing brightly. What do you think? I practiced hard recently to be able to write these characters well. Faced with such a direct question, Xiaqing was unusually ill at ease too. He averted his gaze and muttered woodenly, "Not bad." Then great. Lan Shi was generous and unperturbed while Xiaqing became awkward and nervous instead. Lan Shi was about to confess again. What should he say? Reject her again? But she had even practiced writing for this beach confession. Besides, if she was heartbroken again she might fall prey to scum like Xia Yunfei even more and become unable to free herself of him. Moreover, he actually admired Lan Shi's unrelenting attitude and persistence towards him. Marriage couldn't be rushed into rashly of course, but trying something else wasn't out of the question. Just when Xiaqing was almost mentally prepared for how to handle the situation, Lan Shi's expected confession still didn't come. She took out her phone and snapped photos of the shell creation on the beach from all angles, but didn't say another word to Xiaqing about a proposal. Was this because he had been hit hard last time, to the point of becoming indecisive and timid? Xiaqing cleared his throat, feeling that he should give Lan Shi some encouragement and affirmation. I think your surprise repayment this time is okay. Sure enough, as soon as his words fell, Lan Shi stopped her movements, and undisguised surprise flowed in her eyes. But I haven't prepared a surprise repayment for you yet. There was genuine puzzlement on Lan Shi's face. However, I will remember the great kindness and virtue you just did by helping me pick up seashells. She thought about it, lowered her voice, moved closer to Xiaqing, and whispered mysteriously, since you want to know so badly, I can reveal a little bit to you in advance. After I marry Xia Yunfei, I will be the boss's wife of Chinen Group. In the future, if your company goes bankrupt, you can come to me and I can arrange a job for you at Chinen. I'll arrange a high-paying and easy job for you. I'll have you at the front desk. You just have to look bright and dazzling every day without much to do. Probably because he heard that she was so gracious, Xiaqing's face showed tremendous astonishment, and his voice rose several times. After you marry Xia Yunfei? You and Xia Yunfei? His complexion became somewhat ugly, and the words seemed to be squeezed out one by one. Staring at the seashells on the beach, you put this here to propose to Xia Yunfei? Of course, isn't Lan and Xia written here? I practiced these two characters for a few nights. Lan Shi felt very happy today. Although she got her expensive sportswear wet trying to save someone and had to change into a company t-shirt, and the garbage she had picked up neatly was thrown away, she was still in a very good mood. She had already slept in the car with Xie Yunfei, and they had been on dates to solidify their conquering relationship. Her interactions with him were strictly in accordance with the frequencies stated in the guidebook, and now there was just one last step left before marriage. Although the tutorials in the guidebook had been completely ineffective on Xiaqing previously, they aligned very well with Xie Yunfei. Since this was the case, Lan Shi decided to push for a quick resolution. If Xie Yunfei didn't propose, no matter, she would. After all, she had ample experience with proposals already. Moreover, the guidebook said that beaches were one of the most sacred proposal sites for humans. No time like the present. According to the guidebook's simple beach proposal method, shells arranged in the shape of a heart on the beach with writing in the sand was a fully acceptable way to propose. Not only was it environmentally friendly, but also very affordable. And most conveniently, it was super easy to arrange. With how smoothly and quickly things were progressing with Xie Yunfei, this proposal was sure to succeed. Once she became a boss's wife and had money, she would naturally heavily reward Xiaqing for helping pick up shells for her proposal. Lan Shi was also very satisfied with the setup for this proposal venue. She had even done her homework ahead of time and learned a little about how to write words, though Earth's writing system was so difficult that she couldn't help but cut some corners. In the end, for simplicity's sake, she just barely managed to shakily learn how to write the characters for Lan and Xia. After all, for a proposal, writing just the last names was acceptable enough. Everything was going so harmoniously, yet for some unknown reason, Xiaqing, who had seemed perfectly cheerful just a moment ago, suddenly had a face as dark as storm clouds closing in. Not only that, but his voice had also inexplicably taken on an eerie, weird tone. You can't write the full names? With so many words, who would write full names? Lan Shi paid him no mind, the marriage certificate has the full names written. The beach proposal is just a ceremony. Proposal? Xiaqing's face was still rather unpleasant. You've only known him for how long and you want to propose already? Do you understand what marriage symbolizes? Marriage doesn't require an examination of how long you've known each other. Isn't there such a thing as flash marriage? Xiaqing simply couldn't believe his ears. This woman had just tried to use that bizarre, freakish ceremony to propose to him a little while ago. Even if finding a man to vent her feelings after heartbreak could be forgiven, randomly deciding to marry a subpar option was going too far. Most outrageous of all, why did Lan Shi get a romantic, normal beach proposal for Xie Yunfei while his own proposal had been horror movie charnel house creepy? This really was far too much. Xiaqing knew that right now, the most important thing was to calm down, because things might not actually be as they appeared on the surface. Perhaps this was just another of Lan Shi's schemes using Xie Yunfei to provoke him. It was unwise to make any decisive judgments in a state of emotional turmoil that was rash, irrational, and foolish. Yet Xiaqing's voice seemed to rebel against his brain. I can be with you, he heard himself blurt out. You don't have to keep being sad anymore. Once those words were out, naturally there was no taking them back. The chain reaction sparked by his words also manifested on Lan Shi's face. At first she seemed to be completely stunned, as if unable to comprehend what Xiaqing was saying. A moment later, disbelief and incredulity flickered across her features before her eyes went wide. Huh? Lan Shi looked somewhat confused. But, with Xie Yunfei. Xiaqing nodded, interrupting Lan Shi's words. Yes, I know, he said, averting his gaze. I know what happened between you two. You don't need to explain it to me. That was before we were together, so I don't mind and have no right to look into it. But I hope that once you're with me, you'll know to protect yourself while your own well-being always comes first. Lan Shi hadn't had an easy time growing up. She was deceived at a young, ignorant age into believing that using her body to serve men was normal. As a result, she didn't take intimacy with men seriously at all. This led her to vent her pain after heartbreak in this way. But she wasn't the one at fault, it was the environment that raised her to be this way. Even in this day and age of rising feminist thought, such words coming from a man like himself were sure to make people take notice. Because as soon as Xiaqing finished speaking, Lan Shi's eyes went even wider. She even stepped forward and felt Xiaqing's head with her hand. "Xiaqing, are you feeling okay?" "Of course I'm fine. I just have more progressive, normal ideals." However, Xiaqing's explanation didn't make Lan Shi reveal even the slightest hint of being moved. On the contrary, her face became even more solemn. "Xiaqing, do you need to get a brain CT scan at the hospital?" Lan Shi patted Xiaqing's shoulder in a deliberately meaningful way. "I have no idea what on earth you're talking about. But at least you don't have a fever." Indeed, Lan Shi was very puzzled. What was all this about displacement and substitution? She was utterly confused, but there was one sentence she understood. "I can clearly tell you, I cannot be with you," Lan Shi enunciated carefully. "Because I'm going to marry Xia Yunfei." The marriage certificate can only contain two people's names. When Lan Shi got to this point, she suddenly had an enlightened epiphany. Or could it be that you want to be with me without registering it on the marriage certificate? She instantly thought of plotlines she had seen in the TV dramas she watched while hurriedly learning Earth's languages. Now she understood everything all at once. No wonder Xiaqing stubbornly refused her proposal, because some Earth men were just afraid of marriage. And now Xiaqing had come looking for her, with obvious intentions. "So you've come to apply to be a mistress?" Lan Shi had seen many stories like this, where two people's tale contained a third person's name. However, her well-meaning question seemed to touch Xiaqing's funny bone. He rubbed his brow, looking a little helpless. "Lan Shi, I didn't know you had such a sense of humor. I'm not joking with you. I'm being serious. I'm willing to be with you. Marriage is a grave matter, but I don't preclude us getting together for now, so we'll leave the future to the future. You don't need to worry. Since I'm saying this, I won't go back on it. So you don't need to displace your feelings onto Xia Yunfei and use him as a substitute." His words sounded quite logical, but... "I'm not using Xia Yunfei as a substitute," Lan Shi said, puzzled. "I never thought about being with you either. Because I'm going to marry Xia Yunfei." She stated righteously, "I'm a moral person. I strengthened my learning after that last incident where my quality wandered off. Being immoral enough to take a mistress after getting married means having no quality. I want to be a quality person, so I won't let you be a mistress. Trying to be a mistress is home-wrecking behavior." "Xiaqing, you can't be so muddled. If you keep having such low quality, you'll get yelled at with no way to retort when you go outside." But although Lan Shi had spoken so earnestly, not only did Xiaqing not thank her for scolding him awake, his expression actually grew uglier and the way he glared at Lan Shi more dangerous. He seemed to be biting back some emotion as he ground out, "I don't want to be a mistress. I absolutely refuse to be a mistress." "If you don't want to be a mistress, then could it be?" Lan Shi suddenly had another epiphany. "You don't care about romance at all, you just purely like threesomes?" Indeed, there was an old Earth saying, "Where there are three, there must be one I can learn from." This seemed to fit with Xiaqing's passion for work and self-improvement. With three people working together, there really was no need for romance as long as there was a common goal. While this was meant to be a positive affirmation of Xia Cheng's positive, forward outlook, when Xia Cheng heard it, his eyes nearly spat fire. It must be the beach heat. The most up-to-date NVELs are published on n0velbn.co/m. Lan Shi helpfully suggested, Xia Cheng, you can take some clothes off if you're hot. I'm not hot. But Xia Cheng seemed to be forcibly restraining some emotion, his chest heaved rapidly up and down as well. Beneath that plain, ordinary company t-shirt, the rhythmic undulation traced the contour lines of his chest muscles. Though seemingly inappropriate, Lan Shi didn't know what was up with her eyes, they couldn't help covertly stealing glances at Xia Cheng's chest. Indeed, the beach was too hot and too dry. Before long, Lan Shi also felt her cheeks and ears getting hot and burning, followed by dry mouth and tongue. The proposal scene was already set up, and the garbage was almost all picked up. She hurried to exchange Xia Cheng's self-service meal voucher reward, and then she could propose to Xia Yunfei. At this critical moment, Xia Cheng actually stopped Lan Shi. He glared at Lan Shi for a moment, then quickly averted his gaze, as if he didn't care much, but his voice was extremely emphatic, as if he did care very much. Lan Shi, what exactly do you mean? Lan Shi wondered, I just intend to propose to Xia Yunfei and then marry him, what else could it mean? Xia Cheng almost spelled out each word viciously, weren't you proposing to me just a few days ago? What do you mean by this? Oh. That. Things change. Haven't you heard that saying? Lan Shi desperately searched her brain for vocabulary, out with the old, and with the new. You haven't heard that? Without letting go of the old there will be no new. Now that the old you is gone, there is new Xia Yunfei. Very reasonable. Xia Cheng's face was gloomy, and the corners of his lips were very flat. People who are serious about feelings would never propose to two men in such a short period of time. This was not something Xia Yunfei could be allowed to hear. The guidebook said that what Earthlings hate most is treating feelings lightly. So for this accusation, Lan Shi had to defend herself slickly. It's precisely because I treat every feeling seriously that I propose to every man I like. Every relationship aims for marriage when I date seriously. How am I not serious enough? Sure enough, flawless logic. Xia Cheng seemed to be completely overwhelmed. He stared fiercely at Lan Shi, unable to speak for a long time. Of course Xia Cheng couldn't speak. He didn't know how Lan Shi could have such circuits of thinking. Were the things she said even human words? So her previous pursuit of him, those hot gazes, going on a business trip with him to the countryside without hesitation, even making banners showing her determination, and having the courage to propose, were all fake? Just gone when she said so? Xia Cheng was practically gritting his teeth. Are you serious? Were you serious about me? Can you turn the page in just a few days and propose to a new man? Can this be called serious? But the culprit was completely unaware. She even shamelessly said, I was indeed serious about you before, but since I was rejected, I'll stop if you're uninterested. One-sided feelings have no future. Xia Cheng, it takes two hands to clap. So I've gone to find someone who can clap with me. As for you saying I proposed to Xia Yunfei so quickly, that makes sense too. After all, when you meet the right person, everything will naturally go smoothly and progress very fast. The right person? Xia Yunfei is the right person? Where is this so-called right person now? Weren't you going to propose to him? So where is he? Xia Cheng sneered coldly, why don't I see him with you picking up trash by the beach? Oh, just now I also saw him under a beach umbrella chatting animatedly with a girl in a sexy swimsuit, drinking cocktails. As Xia Cheng spoke, his gaze turned towards the direction of the umbrellas and beach chairs. Xia Yunfei's figure was no longer there. Knowing Xia Yunfei as I do, he has probably eagerly found a nearby hotel to get a room and go to sleep. Xiaqing felt like he was saving Lanshi from the bitter sea. He had gone through immense psychological struggle before finally deciding to try starting with Lanshi, not minding her past. But he didn't expect Lanshi to not only have overcome her heartbreak in such a short time, but even have a new crush already. Right then, the weather turned cloudy. The scorching sunlight disappeared, but the sea breeze grew strong, as if brewing a storm at sea. That powerful wind carried the damp, fishy smell of seawater, ruthlessly buffeting Xiaqing's face, as if giving him an ear-twisting wake-up call right then and there. And Lanshi's following words made him feel even more like he was being slapped across the face. I think Xia Yunfei is pretty good. He's very capable, he never rejects me, and got in bed with me in the car very quickly, unlike you, being all coy, even refusing to sleep with me, lecturing me with all kinds of high-minded theories, not even letting me sleep. Lanshi righteously declared, now I feel that sleeping is great, feeling so comfortable after sleeping, 100 times more spirited. So it's completely normal for people to like sleeping and get addicted to it. As for Xia Yunfei going to sleep with someone else now, I don't think it matters much. It's not like I want to sleep all the time. When someone doesn't have that need, it's right to respect those who do, isn't it? Aren't love and marriage all about accepting each other's flaws and compromising for love? Seeking common ground is good. It's just sleeping, not some hideous unforgivable sin. He's usually very good to me. Xiaqing felt like his values had been completely remodeled. Lanshi's poisonous values were extremely rotten. Her past environment while growing up must have been terribly inferior for her to prettify such infidelity as seeking common ground and accepting each other. What's more? You call that being good to you? Being good to you means abandoning you in place repeatedly? But Lanshi defended shamelessly, he called me cabs. Even special cabs. A man who can call cabs for others is a gentleman with elegance. I want to marry this kind of man. Men who leave without calling cabs can't make relationships work. Ignoring Xiaqing's fierce gaze, Lanshi cleared her throat and concluded, I feel Xia Yunfei is very pure, not pretentious, kind-hearted inside, lacking some worldly wisdom and tricks, but that just shows his inner purity. Although Xiaqing still had that handsome face, Lanshi somehow felt like his features were almost distorted from anger. But looking again, no, Xiaqing's features were still the same. In fact, this was the point where the topic could end. But Lanshi didn't know why she just wanted to win this argument over right and wrong. Damn Xiaqing, how dare he have such poor judgment as to reject such a noble princess as herself back then. Now thinking back, Lanshi still felt a flame of anger rise inside her. That's right, how many times had Xiaqing rejected her before? It was simply the greatest humiliation in Lanshi's life. Especially since she had spent more energy trying to conquer Xiaqing. Yet she had still failed. Luckily she discovered that conquering Xia Yunfei was much more useful than conquering Xiaqing. Otherwise wouldn't she have just gotten stuck on Xiaqing? How could she still have the gall to be here listening to him say Xia Yunfei was no good? What was no good about Xia Yunfei? After conquering Xia Yunfei, she would conquer his assets next, then conquer the earth, and finally conquer the universe. Of course, Xiaqing did not know Lanshi's inner thoughts. He glared at Lanshi, so by calling you a taxi and paying for it, am I plotting something? What exactly am I plotting? You're definitely plotting something, Lanshi pointed to the shell heart she had just arranged, this is an investment. With this taxi fare you're letting me owe you a favor. Later when I become the boss's wife of your Anshan company, of course I'll sell you some privileges. Lanshi stood tall and justified, besides, if you didn't have ulterior motives, shouldn't you have done the good deed anonymously? Why come showing off now? Xiaqing felt like he was about to explode from anger. And she was still glibly arguing. Then pay me back that money, he said, pressing his lips in a line. I don't want to owe you any favor. Pay him back? That won't do. She hadn't married Xie Yunfei and gotten his assets yet. And she was broke herself. She had to come up with an excuse. You owe it to me, I'm doing this for your own good, Lan Shi coughed and said solemnly, you spend money recklessly, so I'll help you keep it for now. In the future when you go bankrupt from overspending, you can come to me to ask for the money you owe, so you'll at least be able to afford a meal. This is a kind of savings for the future. Xie Qing was speechless. He stared at Lan Shi with an expression that was incomprehensible yet shocked and complex. Naturally, he had nothing to say in response. The truth was certainly in Lan Shi's hands. But Lan Shi didn't have time to pay attention to Xie Qing now. She hurriedly took out her phone and copied the English words on it. She found a tree branch and wrote 2 words under Lan and Xia in crooked handwriting. Marry me. Next to these words, Lan Shi drew her own hand. She was very satisfied with her own creativity. She couldn't help showing off to Xie Qing. As long as the proposal is successful later, Xie Yunfei can draw a ring on the hand I drew here. This would be novel yet romantic, and very meaningful. He will definitely fall completely for the sentimental attack. In short, everything was ready. All that's left was an opportune time. She immediately called Xie Yunfei, imitating the coy tone of other girls. She urged him to come to the beach quickly, saying that she had a surprise for him. Naturally, the next step would be to propose. In order to arrange the shell heart, Lan Shi deliberately chose a secluded beach away from the hotels and seaside shops. There were only a few scattered couples lying there, no children or noisy crowds, only the rhythmic sound of waves. She was worried Xie Yunfei wouldn't be able to find her, so she thoughtfully walked towards the seaside shops. Soon, she saw Xie Yunfei. I have a surprise that represents my feelings for you. You'll understand when you see it. The guidebook said that appropriate ambiguity and coyness helped set the atmosphere. Seeing through without saying it outright was the ultimate emotional tug-of-war technique for Earthlings. According to the Advanced Relationship Guide in the guidebook, on Earth, if the woman has already taken the initiative to propose, then her emotions should be more restrained. Being too overt would diminish the sense of mystery and shyness. Occasionally it would make the man feel uncomfortable, as if the woman was too overbearing, giving him a forced up-the-mountain feeling. So at times like this, Lan Shi pointed in the direction. I used shells to create an artwork I want to give you. It represents my feelings. You'll know when you see the picture and words I wrote. Lan Shi displayed the shy expression taught in the guidebook, twisting bashfully, stealing quick glances at Xie Yunfei before swiftly shifting her gaze. The picture is on the beach where I pointed. Go take a look. She gestured at the stretch of beach she had set up earlier. I won't go. Lan Shi pretended to be nervous and shy, covering her blushing face with her hands. I'm too nervous. With this demeanor and body language, Xie Yunfei understood instantly. He raised his eyebrows and walked in the direction Lan Shi had pointed. Although she claimed to be nervous, Lan Shi was actually very calm inside. On the contrary, when she had proposed to Xie Qing last time, her heart was racing quickly. But this was also normal. After all, nothing was as nerve-wracking the first time. Now that this was her second proposal, practice makes perfect. Her composure now made perfect sense. It must be so, without a doubt. Except she realized that while Lan Shi knew today's protagonist was Xie Yunfei and she should be focused on him, her gaze had been wandering the beach searching for Xie Qing. She couldn't comprehend the logic behind this behavior. But on second thought, perhaps she hoped to have a witness when her proposal succeeded this time? Or maybe successfully proposing in front of Xie Qing would let her gloat. It was a pity that Xie Qing, who had just been talking to her earlier, was now nowhere to be seen. A huge feeling of loss and unhappiness suddenly welled up in Lan Shi's heart. Damn Xie Qing, he said he was better than Xie Yunfei? How was he any better? But for now, the mission was to thoroughly conquer Xie Yunfei after proposing. She had to focus on the task at hand. Except Xie Yunfei had been gone for so long already. Why was there still no reaction? When Lan Shi went over to take a look, she discovered that Xie Yunfei was standing in front of her carefully arranged beach with a grave expression. What was going on? By the time Lan Shi rushed over, she realized what had happened. The lovely shell heart she originally made was damaged with some shells taken away. As a result, the once perfect heart shape now had a jagged hole ripped down the middle, becoming a broken heart. Her writing of Lan, Xie, and marry me in the sand was crossed out entirely. The hand she had drawn was still there but was now only had one finger sticking up, which was the middle finger, and the hand was drawn at least 5 times bigger than her original. Xie Yunfei, who was still grinning from ear to ear earlier, now had a black expression on his face as he awkwardly stood in front of the speech drawing. Lan Shi nearly died from rage. With a middle finger now, how could she still make this proposal work? That damn Xie Qing must have done this when he was here earlier. And everyone knew that giving the middle finger signified blatant provocation and insult. How was she going to salvage this situation? Seeing Xie Yunfei's livid face, Lan Shi felt that slipping away now was probably the only way to resolve the scene. Who could have imagined that her nice proposal would end up with the esteemed princess having to tuck her tail and flee in humiliation? Xie Qing! She would remember this vendetta. Lan Shi was fuming with anger as she confronted Xie Qing near the beach where the Qingxin team was holding its team-building event. Why did you ruin my marriage proposal scene? However, in the face of Lan Shi's accusation, the suspect remained surprisingly calm. He glanced at Lan Shi, who was furious, and casually replied, "What? Was the proposal unsuccessful?" Lan Shi was infuriated. "With everything you did, how could I propose? How could it possibly be successful? Who gave you the right to ruin my heartfelt gesture?" "I didn't ruin your heartfelt gesture," Xie Qing said calmly, holding a glass of lemonade. With a condescending tone, he continued, "Those seashells were just scattered on the beach, belonging to no one. Whoever picks them up can claim ownership. I merely lent you my seashells for decoration. Afterward, I had to leave, so I took my own seashells. Any problem with that?" Xie Qing took a sip of lemonade, seemingly unperturbed by the situation. That's what he said, but it was clearly directed at her. Why else would he intentionally pick up some of the seashells, leaving the rest to resemble a broken heart? However, that wasn't the main point. The main point was, why did you modify the picture and words I drew? I drew them myself. What does it have to do with you? He couldn't possibly have an excuse for that. To her surprise, Xie Qing remained composed and said, "Oh, there was a strong gust of wind earlier that scattered the words and drawings you made on the sand. So, out of kindness, I helped you redraw them." Although there was indeed a sea breeze, it wasn't strong enough to blow away Lan Shi's words and drawings. It would have taken a tornado to do that. But let's not dwell on that. Then why did you draw a middle finger? Your intention was to wait for his approval and have him draw a ring on the finger in the sand, right? Engagement and wedding rings are worn on the left middle finger, and each finger with a ring carries a different meaning. I was afraid he might draw it in the wrong place, so I highlighted the middle finger and enlarged it a bit. You know, Xie Yunfei often has a disheveled appearance due to his irregular sleep schedule. The moment was sleepily perfect. I enlarged the finger to make it easier for you to have a successful proposal without any regrets." Xie Qing raised an eyebrow. "No need to thank me, really. Lan Shi was practically suffocating from anger. Who asked for his help anyway? But since things had come to this point, it seemed like the proposal was off for today. They say you can't turn back time, and it's crucial to seize the opportunity at hand. After all the hard work of picking up trash, it was time to receive the reward. But speaking of that, what happened to the second bag of trash I picked up? Oh no! She had been so focused on running away earlier that she left behind the second bag of trash she had collected. Lan Shi hurriedly ran back to the beach, but she was too late. There was nothing left on the beach. The second bag of trash she had painstakingly picked up had been taken away by someone else. Lan Shi felt both angry and frustrated, but luckily. You just said that because you didn't watch over my trash properly, you will take responsibility and award me the annual dinner buffet coupon. Lan Shi coughed and said, you also saw that I actually picked up a second bag. 2 bags plus 1 piece, I definitely picked up the most trash in the company, so I deserve the buffet coupon reward. It's only fair, right? To Lan Shi's surprise, Xiacheng suddenly changed his mind. Since it's a competition, there should be evidence for selection, otherwise, it wouldn't be fair to other colleagues. I did see you picking up the trash just now, but that's because I happened to be walking with you. Many colleagues are not walking in the same direction as me. How can I be sure that they didn't pick up more trash and encounter the same situation as you? Xiacheng continued self-righteously, as a boss, fairness should come first. I should treat all colleagues equally. After all, you and I are just ordinary superior and subordinate, wouldn't you agree? What's more, you're about to marry Xie Yunfei and become the boss's wife, right? You even promised to support me after I go bankrupt. So, would a buffet coupon really make a difference? Xiacheng smiled at Lan Shi, showing his teeth, so, let's give this opportunity to other colleagues. It shouldn't affect you much, right? Lan Shi suspected that Xiacheng was targeting her, but she lacked evidence. Lan Shi was very angry, but more than anger, she felt a strong sense of grievance and resentment. She didn't know why, even though the loss from the failed proposal was greater, her attention was now completely focused on the fact that Xiacheng didn't give her the buffet coupon. He had just said he would compensate her with the coupon. But, if he doesn't want to give it, then so be it. You're right. It won't be a problem once I marry Xie Yunfei. Lan Shi said angrily and turned around to leave. However, as soon as Lan Shi took a step forward, she suddenly stepped on something slippery and lost her balance, falling down on the beach. Fortunately, the sand cushioned her fall, so it wasn't too severe. But when she tried to get up quickly, she felt a sharp pain and a burning sensation in her calf. Lan Shi couldn't help but exclaim, "Ah!" Almost at the same time, Xiacheng, who had been enjoying the sea breeze and drinking ice water, dropped his cup and quickly ran towards Lan Shi. What happened? Are you okay? His face showed genuine concern and nervousness, but in an instant, he noticed that Lan Shi had only fallen on the beach, and her expression seemed unnatural. Just as Xiacheng was about to stand up, his attention was drawn to something colorful near Lan Shi's feet. Xiacheng had read news reports about toxic jellyfish appearing on this beach, but he didn't expect to have the privilege of encountering one today. However, it was useless to warn her at this point, because it was evident that Lan Shi had already been stung. Her fair calf was now swollen and red. There were no highly poisonous jellyfish in Rong City, most of them were only mildly toxic. Although the venom of these jellyfish was not deadly, it could potentially endanger people's lives by causing allergies and respiratory swelling. Xiacheng's mind was completely focused on one thing: he must quickly take Lan Shi to the hospital. Lan Shi did stumble a bit, but it didn't hurt much. She didn't know what kind of colorful creature had stung her, but aside from the initial sting, she quickly recovered to normal. The physical condition of the woody star people was much stronger than that of Earthlings, and their ability to decompose and absorb toxins far exceeded that of Earthlings. Apart from the red swelling on her leg, which hadn't immediately subsided, it didn't affect her movement. In fact, one could even say she was completely unharmed. However, Xiaqing seemed as if he were facing a major enemy. Before Lan Shi could explain, he scooped her up in his arms. "Hold on, I'm taking you to the hospital." "I don't need to go to the hospital." Unfortunately, Xiaqing turned a deaf ear to her protests. With a serious expression on his face, he held Lan Shi tightly and walked briskly. There was a hospital not far along the beach, experienced in treating jellyfish stings. Lan Shi had to be taken there quickly. Xiaqing was carrying Lan Shi horizontally, and as he glanced at her restlessly in his arms, he was clearly agitated and anxious. "You really are fearless out of ignorance. Do you know that if this kind of wound isn't treated promptly, it could be fatal?" Xiaqing, who had previously been calm and composed, now looked disheveled and restless. Because he was carrying Lan Shi in his arms and walking quickly, sweat beads formed on his forehead. With both hands tightly embracing Lan Shi, he couldn't wipe them away. Lan Shi watched as the sweat trickled down his face, following the lines and eventually disappearing into the open collar of Xiaqing's shirt. It wasn't an overtly romantic scene, but Lan Shi's heart couldn't help but beat rapidly. It seemed that being held by Xiaqing like this wasn't so bad after all. After all, it was a Princess Carrie, and she, as a dignified princess, was a perfect match for it. Even her mood improved, and all the previous grievances and resentments vanished. The more she looked at Xiaqing, the more pleasing he became in her eyes. Xiaqing didn't speak to Lan Shi throughout the journey. He just hurriedly carried her into the hospital, registered and waited in line, and showed the doctor the jellyfish photo he had taken earlier, then communicated with the doctor. Fortunately, the doctor had a lot of experience. He glanced at Xiaqing's photo and said, "This kind of jellyfish is harmless, with only mild toxicity. Moreover, judging from the wound, it's not deep. Most people would experience severe redness and swelling, but in your case, there isn't even much swelling. You probably just brushed against one of the jellyfish's tentacles, causing some skin irritation. Rinse the wound with a baking soda solution and apply the ointment I'm prescribing. It should be fine in a few days." However, Xiaqing remained unconvinced, his tone filled with anxiety. "But she fell because of being stung by the jellyfish. Are you sure there's no danger?" The doctor was an older gentleman who glanced at Xiaqing and said, "I understand your concern for your girlfriend's well-being, but we handle these situations every year and have a lot of experience. If you're worried, you can get a blood test, although I don't recommend it as it may be unnecessary medical intervention." Xiaqing really wanted Lan Shi to get a blood test to ensure she was safe, but unfortunately, his suggestion was met with strong opposition from Lan Shi. She refused to get the test and insisted that she was fine. Finally, the doctor settled the matter by saying, "It's fine not to get the test. Young man, you're being overly anxious." As he said this, he glanced at Lan Shi and quickly realized something, a knowing smile appearing on his face. "Your girlfriend is quite beautiful, and you two make a good couple." Lan Shi couldn't help but interrupt the doctor. She cleared her throat and pointed at Xiaqing, clarifying, "I'm not his girlfriend. I have a boyfriend, and we're about to get married. If it weren't for this incident, I would have just proposed to him on the beach." She paused for a moment, looked at Xiaqing, and added, "We have a normal superior-subordinate relationship." Lan Shi became a bit upset as she continued, "He doesn't like me at all. I spent the whole day picking up trash, and he followed me the whole time, knowing full well what I was doing, but he didn't even fulfill the promised prize for the trash-picking competition." Xiaqing stood by with a serious expression, saying nothing. It was the doctor who couldn't help but laugh at the situation. He teased Xiaqing with a wink and then turned to Lanshi, saying, "He doesn't dislike you." As he wrote the prescription, he continued, "He actually seems to like you. And as for your almost married boyfriend, since he was also on the beach, why didn't he immediately come to your aid after you were stung by a jellyfish?" The doctor pushed up his glasses and spoke with earnestness, "You're still young, but marriage is a lifelong commitment. You should consider it carefully." After confirming that Lanshi was indeed unharmed, Xiaqing took the prescription and went to the pharmacy to get the medication. Lanshi waited idly, and it was at this moment that Xiaqing, who hadn't spoken a word before, finally cleared his throat. He glanced at Lanshi and asked, "Did you hear what I said earlier?" Lanshi nodded, "I heard." Xiaqing's voice sounded a bit unnatural as he continued, "After hearing that, do you have any feelings about it? Some people's true character may not be apparent at first, but at least you can tell by comparison, right?" Lanshi agreed with this point. Just based on Xiaqing's concern for her now, she wanted to reward and appreciate him. She nodded solemnly and said, "You're right. The doctor's words make sense, so I've made a major decision." Xiaqing knew he should stay calm, but whenever he was with Lanshi, it was impossible for him to maintain a composed state of mind. Just in this single day, his emotions had been like a roller coaster, going up and down repeatedly. He tried to be rational, but his heart couldn't help but beat with nervousness. That doctor, as a neutral third party, truly had a clear perspective and spoke words of truth. So, did Lanshi finally take his words to heart? Pulling back the reins at the cliff's edge, it was not too late to rectify the mistake. To acknowledge one's errors and make amends is a great virtue. Xiaqing felt that although Lanshi had previously misunderstood Xie Yunfei, her change of heart should be encouraged by society. As a compassionate citizen, he believed it was his duty to offer help, support, and praise. However, before he could carefully choose his words, Lanshi spoke up preemptively. Her eyes sparkled, her voice resolute, and her speech rhythmic and forceful. "Xiaqing, the doctor was right. You truly are a good person." Caught off guard by her gaze, Xiaqing felt a bit uneasy and instinctively averted his eyes. "So, what are you trying to say?" "We have known each other for quite some time, so I'll be direct. I've observed your recent behavior, and I believe you have made significant progress. It's worth giving you another chance." Lanshi's words carried a hint of superiority, granting him another opportunity. But back when she pursued him, it wasn't like this. Nevertheless, Xiaqing understood that she had misjudged him, and now she was regretful. Hence, she needed to put on a show of strength in her words. He thought these subtle intentions were understandable. Though Xiaqing tried to restrain himself, a faint smile tugged at the corners of his mouth. Compared to Xie Yunfei, anyone with clear eyes would eventually see the truth. Lanshi wasn't entirely oblivious. But just as his smile was about to widen, he heard Lanshi's resolute voice continue. "So, you must take good care of your health, exercise regularly, and maintain a healthy lifestyle. Get enough sleep and wake up early for longevity, got it?" The sudden shift in topic. Xiaqing was completely perplexed. "What?" Lanshi's gaze was earnest. "You must live longer than Xie Yunfei. Remember, take care of yourself, get regular checkups, examine your brain, take some tonics. You must outlive Xie Yunfei." Xiaqing didn't understand why his lifespan had anything to do with Xie Yunfei. Why should he be compared to him? "I will definitely live longer than him." Lanshi's voice sounded relieved. "That's good." Though he didn't grasp why the topic suddenly shifted to this, Lanshi couldn't be analyzed using normal social logic. Perhaps it was just a passing thought in her mind, a sincere hope that she herself would live a long life. With this in mind, Xiaqing's mood improved a little. She wanted him to outlive Xie Yunfei. That alone indicated the importance he held in Lan Shi's heart, surpassing Xie Yunfei. Furthermore, the words "that's good" were genuinely heartfelt. However, just as Xie Qing was about to revel in his triumph, Lan Shi continued. Visit novelbin.c.m for updates. Xie Qing, as long as you outlive Xie Yunfei, after he passes away, I will choose you as my rightful partner. I will go ahead and marry him according to the plan. But once he's gone, I will come to you and give you a chance. Lan Shi affectionately patted Xie Qing's shoulder. So, take good care of your health, strive to live longer. Believe that with my encouragement, you will surely succeed. Still long-lived? Xie Qing felt like he was about to breathe his last right then and there. Xie Qing lay on his bed, still very angry, after the team-building activity had come to an end. His facial expression and mood clearly indicated his displeasure. Anyone could tell that he was in a bad mood. But Lan Shi, on the other hand, seemed completely oblivious, happily engrossed in her own world. Xie Qing had taken care of her and even accompanied her to see a doctor, but she showed no gratitude. Instead, she bluntly said, "We don't need you here anymore, so you can leave." Under normal circumstances, even an ex-boyfriend would be offered a cup of tea after accompanying someone to see a doctor. Moreover, Xie Qing and Lan Shi had never even been in a relationship, so there shouldn't have been any lingering resentment due to a breakup. Sometimes, Xie Qing really wondered if he should take Lan Shi to get her brain checked. How could her brain be so perplexing? She had exceptional intelligence when it came to analyzing data, but when it came to social interactions and emotional perception, she was completely clueless. As he left, she even expressed her intention to go find Xie Yunfei and explain that she didn't want the misunderstandings on the beach to become a thorn in his heart, affecting their relationship. Even now, thinking about the scene just now, Xie Qing couldn't help but sneer. Why was it not okay for thorns to take root in Xie Yunfei's heart? But Lan Shi had no qualms about planting thorns in Xie Qing's heart. Even the gentle and soothing piano music that Xie Qing had put on to calm his emotions seemed somewhat noisy. The melodies he used to love now felt grating. Xie Qing tried to focus on work, but his mind was elsewhere, making it impossible to concentrate. He attempted to exercise on the treadmill at home, but as soon as he stepped on it, he couldn't help but think of Lan Shi and how she had cornered him in the gym. He decided to watch a drama on television to divert his attention, but the seamless transition to a new romance storyline made Xie Qing even angrier. Lan Shi, it seemed that he could think of nothing else but Lan Shi, which inevitably led to frustration and irritability. Under normal circumstances, if one's mood was off, it would be best to stay away from the person causing it. However, Xie Qing felt as if he had contracted Stockholm Syndrome. Being near Lan Shi made him restless and anxious, causing him to lose his usual calm and rationality. Yet, he stubbornly couldn't help but approach her. Lan Shi made him feel bewildered and lose control of his emotions. This emotional response was not part of Xie Qing's predicted social patterns. He became contradictory and illogical, and his algorithms and mathematical formulas, which he had always taken pride in, crumbled. He used to be infatuated with algorithms, relying on strict social algorithm patterns to navigate almost all social interactions. But now, facing Lan Shi, he felt helpless. The algorithm that had given him confidence became useless, and Xie Qing felt defeated and powerless for the first time. He couldn't predict Lan Shi's actions, and he couldn't even fathom his own thoughts. Xie Qing's most relied-upon order was completely shattered, yet amidst his unease, he surprisingly didn't want to resist this emotion. Lan Shi had influenced him too much. To a degree that couldn't be explained merely by sympathy and pity. Because sympathy and pity wouldn't make a person feel jealous. Although he was reluctant to admit it, at this moment, lying in bed and tossing and turning, Xie Qing finally realized that he was jealous. After Lan Shi's failed confession to him and her subsequent pursuit of Xie Yunfei, he didn't feel relieved in the slightest. On the contrary, he became even more concerned, so concerned that it angered him and caused internal distress. While Xie Yunfei was indeed a terrible choice, Xiaqing discovered that he couldn't tolerate the mere thought of Lan Shi pursuing a man who excelled in all aspects. He could no longer hide behind the shield of sympathy. Xiaqing's villa area was exceptionally quiet, with the night as serene as water, making the sound of his heart beating wildly within his chest particularly abrupt. No matter how precise an algorithm might be, it couldn't deduce love. Xiaqing realized that he seemed to have genuinely and irretrievably fallen for Lan Shi. He tried to calm himself down by pressing his hand against his heart, but contrary to his wishes, this sudden realization made him even more nervous and excited. Tonight, there was no way he could fall asleep. And it was at this moment that Lan Shi, in a deplorable state, intensified Xiaqing's insomnia, and it was also then that Xiaqing received a phone call from her. The background noise on the other end of the phone was noisy and chaotic, making Lan Shi's voice sound even more pitiful. Xiaqing, I came to the nightclub with Xie Yunfei, but I'm so hungry. I haven't had dinner, and I'm out of money. Nightclub? Xie Yunfei? Xiaqing couldn't bear the possibility that Lan Shi might be with Xie Yunfei. He put on a stern face and immediately got up from the bed, starting to get dressed. He wanted to see Lan Shi right now. Xie Yunfei wasn't safe, let alone the fact that she hadn't eaten. Lan Shi saw Xiaqing at the entrance of the nightclub. He looked disheveled, as always, with his handsome and aloof appearance standing out conspicuously amidst the flashy ambience of the nightclub. There were a few scantily clad girls smoking at the entrance of the nightclub, and upon seeing Xiaqing, their gaze couldn't help but shift towards him, brimming with interest. Hey handsome, are you alone? No, I'm looking for someone. Upon hearing Xiaqing's polite and cold response, Lan Shi's gaze passed over the crowd and fell on her. He walked towards her. The nightclub was blaring with deafening and rhythmic electronic music, drowning out almost all the normal sounds around Lan Shi. Yet, for some reason, at this moment, those annoying sounds seemed to have suddenly vanished into a vacuum and were replaced by another sound, Lan Shi's own heartbeat. Thump, thump, thump. Each beat was so heavy and forceful that Lan Shi couldn't ignore it. And the drumbeat in the background music of the nightclub seemed to resonate with Lan Shi's heartbeat, causing him to feel somewhat irritated and restless within this dual vibration. Princesses shouldn't be like this, they should always remain calm, composed, and forge ahead with courage. However, the more Lan Shi admonished herself, the more nervous she became. She suspected that there was some strange virus on Earth, corroding her thoughts. Otherwise, why would she have inexplicably called Xiaqing half an hour ago, claiming to be hungry? And now Xiaqing had arrived. Except his expression looked grim. Why did you drag Xie Yunfei to this dingy place for clubbing in the middle of the night? He asked. It's all because of you. Lan Shi mumbled, you set up that shell-shaped thing. I had a hard time pacifying him, and if I didn't accompany him to the nightclub, he would be angry all the time. How could I propose to him then? So, you didn't even eat dinner and came here with him? Xiaqing's face stiffened. Xie Yunfei is inside dancing with other girls. Are you sure you can turn a blind eye to that? Turn a blind eye? Lan Shi immediately gave it a try and found it wasn't difficult at all. Of course, I can. She looked at Xiaqing. See, I can easily turn a blind eye. When this eye gets tired, I'll switch to the other one. Xiaqing looked helpless. Mentally ill patients and intellectually challenged children have a lot of fun. That statement isn't entirely false. Huh? Okay, open your eyes. Xiaqing pursed his lips and looked at Lan Shi. Since Xie Yunfei is still inside dancing, why didn't you directly ask him for money to buy food? Why did you come looking for me in the middle of the night? She hesitated for a moment, but then she thought of a reason. It was your suggestion. You said I could come to you if I needed anything. And when I have no food, I can let you foot the bill. As for why I came looking for you, it's because, after marrying Xie Yunfei, his money will be mine. So, spending his money now is the same as spending my own. It's better to spend yours. She didn't know why she made up such a story, but under Xie Chang's gaze, she didn't want to tell the truth. She wanted to appear strong and lie. It must be that damn Earth virus infecting her. However, Xie Chang certainly didn't appreciate this answer. She watched as he pursed his lips and turned to leave. Xi's mind went blank. She looked at Xie Chang's figure and almost blurted out, "Xie Chang. Don't go. I just lied to you." But almost simultaneously with Xi's words, Xie Chang's voice sounded. He turned back and said, "Aren't you hungry? Why don't you come up and have dinner?" He paused for a moment and then asked, "You said you lied to me. What did you lie about?" She regretted it deeply, but the words had already slipped out. She could only try to lower her voice and hastily say, "I didn't come to you because I wanted to save money for Xie Yunfei. I simply didn't want to find Xie Yunfei. It's not that complicated." Xie Chang stared at her with an inscrutable expression and let out a long "oh." He appeared unchanged, with a calm demeanor and a slight upward curl of his lips. "What are you staring at? Let's go eat." She was a bit curious. "So, were you really planning to take me out for a meal?" Xie Chang didn't turn around, only making a sound of agreement. "But I didn't explain earlier that I lied to you," she said. Xie Chang paused, looking somewhat unnatural. "Didn't you say it?" "We said it at the same time, so when you agreed to take me out for a meal, you didn't actually know that I had lied to you." She rolled her eyes and glanced at Xie Chang. "So, Xie Chang, you really are a good person. Is this what they call returning kindness for resentment? You're so kind." When flattering someone, it's essential to praise them if you want to enjoy their meal. Unfortunately, Xie Chang was quick to deflate the situation. "This isn't goodness or returning kindness for resentment, this is foolishness." He glanced at Shi with a touch of annoyance, then quickly averted his gaze, as if speaking to himself. "I'm being foolish. There's no benefit in being a good person." Despite saying this, Xie Chang didn't seem to be in a bad mood. Shi followed him into his car, but it was already quite late, and Xie Chang contacted several restaurants in succession, only to find that they were all closed. Only a few sparsely populated barbecue stalls remained on the street. "These places are unsanitary," Xie Chang said, looking at the questionable hygiene of these shops. Finally, he made a decision. "If you don't mind, I'll take you back to my place and cook something for you." She certainly didn't mind, but when she nodded in agreement, Xie Chang's displeasure became evident. You shouldn't casually agree to go to someone's home, especially of the opposite sex. Xie Chang's face grew long. "You agreed too easily. It's so late, aren't you afraid that I might have ulterior motives? If someone else invited you like this, would you be so easily fooled and taken advantage of?" "No, I wouldn't." She was very confident about this. "They wouldn't stand a chance against me. And besides, I agreed so readily because it was you who invited me." She looked into Xie Chang's eyes. "Because I think you're a good person." Xie Chang fell silent for a moment, his ears turning slightly red. He stared at the steering wheel, his tone icy. "Don't think flattery will get you anywhere." Without traffic, Shi quickly arrived at Xie Chang's villa. He was very efficient and quickly prepared 10 servings of steak and pasta for Lan Shi. Lan Shi devoured all 10 servings, finally revealing a contented smile that indicated she was 7 parts full. How can one say that flattery is useless? Every single time, it clearly works. Having eaten her fill and drunk her share, in keeping with the principle of reciprocity, Lan Shi intended to help clean up and put the dishes in the dishwasher. However, as soon as she picked up the 3 plates, she felt a strange, furry sensation on her ankle, something tickling her, like a brush with soft bristles, or perhaps the tail of something. This was Lan Shi didn't have time to think as she heard a coquettish meow from beside her foot. It was actually a cat. Why does Xia Cheng's home have a cat? Lan Shi was shocked and turned pale. This was the greatest natural enemy of the Mui Star people. She had only come here today to earn a meal, but did she have to face her end here? The greatest fear often stems from the unknown. Faced with a cat, the long-extinct natural enemy of Mui Star, Lan Shi felt her scalp tingling. She had no idea how to deal with this cat. Trembling and breathing rapidly, Lan Shi was in a state of terror, while the cat took advantage of the situation and roamed freely, meowing incessantly and rubbing its tail against Lan Shi's legs. It was an utterly horrifying experience. Lan Shi trembled and endured for a moment, but the cat didn't leave. Finally, in the midst of immense panic, Lan Shi couldn't hold back any longer. Bang! Startled, she shook and accidentally dropped the 3 bowls in her hands, shattering them. Almost simultaneously, the cat darted away at lightning speed. The crisis was averted, but the moment of terror had left Lan Shi completely weak, still carrying the fear of a close call in her heart. What happened? Xia Cheng, who had been replying to a work email from abroad in the living room, had heard the sound of plates breaking and appeared in front of Lan Shi with a worried and hurried expression. Lan Shi wanted to leave, but Xia Cheng sternly stopped her. Stay where you are and don't move. Before Lan Shi could react, Xia Cheng stepped over the broken pieces and then bent down to scoop her up in his arms. Sorry, there are usually no women visiting my house, so I don't have slippers for women. Only disposable hotel-style slippers, which have thin soles. If you step on broken porcelain, it could cut your feet. As he spoke, he skillfully carried Lan Shi away and placed her on the sofa. I'll clean up, you sit here. Just as Xia Cheng turned around to leave, Lan Shi grabbed him tightly. Xia Cheng, I don't want you to go. Lan Shi was genuinely afraid. Although the cat had run away just now, it was still in Xia Cheng's house and she didn't know when it might show up again. She didn't want to be alone and risk an unfortunate encounter. She couldn't let Xia Cheng leave no matter what. Lan Shi's mind quickly searched for the knowledge she had learned from the guidebook. In situations like this, she should act cute. So Lan Shi stubbornly clung to Xia Cheng, hugging him from behind. Xia Cheng, I'm scared. She was truly scared, and even now her body was trembling slightly. Xia Cheng, can you please not leave? I don't want to be alone. Xia Cheng's body seemed to pause for a moment, and he tensed up slightly, but he didn't push Lan Shi away. Instead, he turned around, and Lan Shi took the opportunity to nestle into his embrace, burying her head and stubbornly tightening her grip around his waist, assuming the posture of a koala clinging tightly. It's just a few broken plates, I won't ask you for compensation, so don't be afraid. It's not that, Lan Shi increased the strength of her embrace. I feel at ease only when I'm with you. After a moment of silence, Xia Cheng spoke again. Do you want me to stay with you right now? Naturally. There's a cat here. Lan Shi nodded eagerly, yes. Xia Cheng looked at Lan Shi, her fragile and helpless appearance filled with dependence on him. She relied on Xie Qing with her whole being, as if she couldn't bear to be separated from him even for a minute. Xie Qing's displeased mood was gradually replaced by another feeling. He felt a long-lost sense of relief, a kind of physical and mental pleasure that surpassed the satisfaction of completing a major collaboration. It brought a slightly intoxicating sense of lightness. She didn't want to leave him. Although she said she wanted to be with Xie Yunfei, she decisively left Xie Yunfei at the nightclub and followed Xie Qing home. At this moment, her true inner thoughts were revealed without any defense. She was indeed dependent on him. A plan suddenly formed in Xie Qing's mind. When communicating with people, it was important to identify their weaknesses and strike at them for the best results. Since she couldn't be separated from him now, naturally he should take this opportunity to make her realize her feelings, to face her own emotions head-on. That way, she wouldn't continue deluding herself and being with someone like Xie Yunfei who was of lower quality. Xie Qing had a plan in mind. He regained his composure and rationality, saying, "Originally, I could accompany you. However, since you're going to propose to Xie Yunfei, it means your relationship is stable. It's no longer appropriate for me to bring you home for dinner. If I continue to stay with you like this, a man being with you so late at night, it would make me the third party. You know that society has very little tolerance for third parties now. Lightly, it would damage my reputation, and heavily, it would leave a lasting bad impression." Xie Qing looked at Shi and slowly pushed her away. "So, if you're afraid and need someone to accompany you, I can help you call Xie Yunfei." Shi fell silent as expected. Xie Qing was already 90% certain. Sometimes, people needed to be pushed to realize the importance of certain people and things. He calmly waited for Shi's answer. Sure enough, after a brief silence, Shi quickly made up her mind. She looked at Xie Qing with determined eyes, resolute in her tone, and said, "Okay." Xie Qing's prepared smile froze. "Okay?" He couldn't believe it and asked, "I said I would ask Xie Yunfei to come and accompany you, so if he's here, I won't be. Do you understand? In this situation, are you sure you can handle it?" Shi nodded, "It's fine. Anyone can accompany me. Xie Yunfei is also good. Since I left him behind and came to your house for dinner, it's indeed not appropriate. Now, it's just the right time to call him over. He hasn't had dinner yet, too busy drinking and partying at the nightclub. You can cook for him as well, and then you can leave. He can accompany me and take me back to the dormitory." If Xie Qing had some unrealistic fantasies just now, he was completely sober now. Shi's attitude was a heavy blow to him. Xie Qing could no longer maintain his previous composure and couldn't help raising his voice. "So, both Xie Yunfei and I are fine? As long as someone is willing to accompany you, it's all good?" She fearlessly responded with a She had no idea why Xie Qing was so angry. The man's eyes seemed to turn red with anger as he stared at Shi with an interrogative tone. "What has Xie Yunfei done for you? He has a bunch of ex-girlfriends. He can just leave you behind and go to nightclubs to have fun, completely forgetting about you. He wouldn't even accompany you to pick up trash on the beach. Is he no different from me in your eyes? But it was you who suggested that Xie Yunfei should accompany me. Why are you so angry now?" Xie Qing was proud and always in control. He liked everything to operate according to logical algorithms. Therefore, even when he realized that he had feelings for Shi, he quickly devised a meticulous and logical plan in his mind. He was confident that this approach would make Shi see the reality and recognize who she should truly like. However, at this moment, he felt that all his plans and strategies were in vain. Because Shi was the biggest variable in his life. Xie Qing felt frustrated and angry. Do you understand what kind of emotions drive people to get married? This wasn't the scenario he had envisioned. It lacked elegance and rationality. He was only filled with frustration and indignation. But Xiaqing couldn't control himself. Marriage should be based on liking someone, wanting to spend the rest of your life with them, seeing them every day, and sharing every moment of joy and pain together. It's about going through life's highlights and climbing together through the lows, rather than marrying someone solely for money. Xiaqing didn't know what was happening to him. He felt terrible. This wasn't his usual self, but he couldn't restrain his emotions. News tirais at n/vel/b/i/n.co. He stared at Lan Shi and asked, "So, do you understand what it means to like someone?" Lan Shi had the answer. Of course, she understood. She had read about it in the Earthling's Guide to Conquest. Liking someone means feeling at ease when you're with them. It's a certain feeling of thinking that the other person is great. I feel at ease when I'm with Xie Yunfei. I'm not angry, and I don't have any negative emotions. Does that mean we're not suitable together? Interestingly, when she was with Xiaqing, Lan Shi would get angry, unhappy, disappointed, and irritated. These were negative emotions she had never experienced before, and she only experienced them because of Xiaqing. When she was with Xie Yunfei, on the other hand, Lan Shi felt very calm and emotionally stable. She wouldn't get upset no matter what Xie Yunfei did. She thought everything was great and had no issues. But if the same things were done by Xiaqing, if he had a bunch of ex-girlfriends and could casually leave her behind, regardless of her well-being, if he was busy partying and completely forgot about her, or if he only focused on chatting and didn't accompany her in picking up trash, just thinking about it made Lan Shi feel extremely angry, like she was about to explode. She clearly showed more tolerance towards Xie Yunfei's behavior, but when it came to Xiaqing, she used an entirely different set of higher standards to judge him. Considering all this, it seemed that she truly preferred Xie Yunfei and was more suitable to marry him. To like someone naturally brings joy and happiness. It's a comfortable feeling to be with that person. But if these emotions are the only things present, it's not genuine liking. True liking involves jealousy, possessiveness, misunderstandings, staying up all night over an unintentional remark, feeling restless and unhappy. Besides the positive emotions, you will experience roller coaster-like fluctuations and encounter negative emotions. If you never get angry at someone, no matter what they do, and your state of mind remains calm, that's not liking. It simply means you don't really care about that person. Lan Shi widened her eyes. This was the first time she had heard such an explanation. But what's written in my guidebook is exactly what I just described as liking, she protested. As soon as she said it, Xiaqing's expression turned unpleasant. His questioning of Lan Shi was instinctive. Deep down, he had some confidence that Lan Shi liked him but hadn't honestly faced her true feelings. However, Lan Shi's reaction now made Xiaqing somewhat uncertain. So, you genuinely don't understand what liking means? You can't even sense what it feels like to like someone? He felt his blood pressure rising rapidly. Then, what about when you chased after me, held up banners saying you wanted to sleep with me so blatantly, confessed without any regard for your dignity, lied about being scared and then acted all cute and clingy towards me, instinctively turned to me when faced with difficulties, and even proposed to me? Are these not signs of liking? Xiaqing seemed to have realized something and angrily said, or is it that you would do all these things to Xie Yunfei as well? You don't care about the object of your actions at all, do you? So, you proposed to me one moment and then proposed to him the next? After all the confusion, was he just overthinking? So, Lan Shi's pathetic attempts at pursuing him weren't due to a lack of heartfelt emotions and genuine effort but simply because she didn't want to use her brain and put in any real effort? In that case, it seemed obvious that seeking out Xie Yunfei wasn't some rebound response or settling for a lesser option. Xiaqing felt like he was about to explode with anger. It turned out that every move Lan Shi made was part of an emotional deception aimed at him. Xiaqing thought this way and asked this way as well. Romance scam? How is it a scam? Faced with Xiaqing's question, Lan Shi did not know how to respond, but she felt a little guilty. Subconsciously, she even forgot to lie. I actually did everything according to that, a guidebook on how to quickly captivate men. I followed the guidebook very seriously. As a result, this explanation seemed to add fuel to the fire. Xiaqing looked even angrier. A guidebook? You even made a guidebook? So anyone would do? You did those things just according to the step-by-step process written in the guidebook without any sincerity? How many men have you captivated like this in total? Have they all been captivated by you? No. Not really. I customized it. Lan Shi felt more and more guilty. Her voice became softer and she felt a little wronged as well. I've only done this to you and Xie Yunfei so far. Up until now, I haven't successfully captivated anyone. Speaking of this, Lan Shi could not help but feel distressed as well. I spent most of my energy trying to captivate you. You were my first target that I tried so hard to captivate yet still failed. I tried so hard and did everything the guidebook said. Yet you still refused to be captivated by me. So can you blame me for switching targets? It's because you don't cooperate. As for Xie Yunfei, he cooperates much more than you do, so I don't even need to follow the guidebook with him. He's already very proactive and willing. The first one you tried so hard yet unsuccessfully to captivate, then how many have you effortlessly captivated before? None. I've never captivated anyone else before. Why would Lan Shi need to captivate anyone else before? She was a princess. However, this answer at least made Xiaqing's expression a little better. He coughed and asked seemingly casually, one should finish what they started. I'm better than Xie Yunfei. Of course, I'm harder to captivate. Your ordinary tactics simply don't work. But as long as you persevere, success is not impossible. As long as you are sincere and persistent, many difficulties can be overcome. He glanced at Lan Shi. You clearly lack persistence. The moment you don't succeed in captivating your target, you immediately give up and switch to another one. In the end, you will accomplish nothing. That's not it. Mainly I realized Xie Yunfei is better than you. People all say that Qing'an is richer than Qingxian. And the company is bigger too. Captivating him is more useful. Lan Shi answered seriously, and what you said about accomplishing nothing does not exist. There are no difficult tasks in this world, one only needs to be willing to give up. You are harder to captivate, but Xie Yunfei is easier. I know myself clearly now. I'll give up on the difficult one and find an easy one instead. Doesn't that make life easier? I won't need to put in effort or suffer either. Xiaqing felt that ever since meeting Lan Shi, his temperament and virtues have improved further. After all, every time before his virtues were about to snap, he could quickly calm down and restrain himself, and even his state of mind ascended an entire level. His whole soul has been sublimated. Are the words Lan Shi just said human words? It turns out everything has been Xiaqing's own delusions from beginning to end. What reliance on him, special feelings for him, not understanding normal interpersonal interactions, thus appearing innocent and genuine? Xiaqing now realizes that everything was his own embellishment of Lan Shi. She's not that innocent at all. How could he not have realized that although she doesn't understand interpersonal interactions, it doesn't mean she is innocent? There can be bad eggs among fools too. He always felt Lan Shi was foolish, but only now does Xiaqing realize that he himself was the fool to fall for an emotional scammer like Lan Shi and jump in himself. Xiaqing truly and sincerely struggled before finally seeing clearly his own feelings for the first time and earnestly wanting to confess to her, only to get this kind of result. Xiaqing never expected this kind of development before. He originally thought all it would take was a heartfelt confession and he would get the ending he wanted, to move Lan Shi's heart. But he never considered that although Lan Shi has a heart, it may be a black heart. And as if afraid he wouldn't die of anger, Lan Shi actually patted him on the shoulder with a pretentiously profound look and said righteously, "Xiaqing, it's okay. You like me and want to be with me, that's equivalent to you wanting to captivate me, right? But I'm very difficult to captivate, so you only need to switch to an easier target." What is she saying? Luckily he hasn't confessed yet. Amidst his indignation, Xiaqing feels some relief as well. This woman simply has no heart. Although he was tricked, since he hasn't taken the initiative to confess, it means he hasn't revealed his hand. Rounding it off, it means he hasn't been tricked. He should have just ignored her and walked away, but Xiaqing's legs seemed to disobey him as he remained firmly rooted. "I'm not as fickle as you." Xiaqing held in his anger and tried his best to keep a calm and steady appearance. "Since I want to do something, of course I'll try my best and persist. Don't assume everyone is so fickle." Lan Shi felt quite comfortable. At this moment, she secretly felt a trace of schadenfreude, suddenly understanding a popular Earth saying, "Just as you once ignored me whether I lived or died, now I'm too prominent for you to pursue." When she was desperately trying every way to captivate Xiaqing, how did he respond? And now he finally deeply feels her innate noble temperament and wants to captivate her instead? Humph! Lan Shi felt a little smug, and also a little inexplicably nervous. But she still bluffed and said calmly, "The very comprehensive guidebook I have says that one always faces choices in life, and sometimes knowing when to let go at the right time is also a type of wisdom." Unfortunately, Xiaqing's voice was no longer calm and steady this time. He even sounded a little exasperated, interrupting Lan Shi, "I don't know what trash guidebook you read, but your description of your feelings for Xia Yunfei earlier is definitely not liking. Because if there is only a peaceful mood, not even ambiguity, let alone liking. Caring deeply for someone, emotions will naturally ebb and flow with them. It's impossible to be as tranquil as you described." Lan Shi felt confused. That uneasy nervousness came again. She panicked trying to refute while having no idea why she felt so flustered, but the guidebook said, "What your trash guidebook says is wrong. Where did you buy that garbage stall guidebook? Stop reading it. How do you know it's wrong?" Lan Shi's emotions became indescribable, making her feel out of control. She didn't know what was going on with herself. She only instinctively felt danger approaching, giving her the urge to flee. But Xiaqing didn't give her the chance. As she reflexively wanted to spout nonsense to change the subject, Xiaqing interrupted her. His voice sounded unnatural. His complexion was also resigned, as if he had wanted to endure but finally couldn't stand it anymore. And this time, Xiaqing finally shifted his gaze back to Lan Shi. Then Lan Shi heard his slow and distinct voice, slightly nervous and uncomfortable. "Because I like you." After saying this, Xiaqing finally relaxed, as if having taken the most difficult first step. He took a deep breath. His tone was still a little nervous, carrying a pretense of composure he couldn't maintain. He seemed to have gone all in. "Because I like you, so I unconsciously always look at you. Because I like you, I feel you're very cute. Because I like you, I don't want you hurt. Because I like you, so I want to help you. But also, because I like you, upon seeing you smoothly switch to pursuing Xia Yunfei, I got very angry. Seeing you together every day irritated me to no end. You proposing to him made me only want to sabotage things, and seeing you intimate with others, I have no desire to congratulate. Liking someone to the point that I experienced very positive emotions, willingly making time for you when you need it, always feeling compelled to be by your side when you need me. But liking someone also let me experience darker emotions that I've never felt before, said Lan Shi. Darker emotions? Lan Shi's heartbeat grew erratic and chaotic. Her gaze that had been fixed on Xiaqing now darted around uncertainly. This was a scenario absent from the guidebook. She had no experience dealing with such situations. Not knowing what to do with her hands or feet, her breathing quickened. She also didn't understand why she reflexively avoided eye contact with Xiaqing. She was curious about the answer, yet also afraid of it. The many unknowns left Lan Shi at a loss. She felt like an outsider who had just been thrown into a jungle, forced to face an entirely new environment and dangers lying in wait. Yet her whole body was frozen stiff, unable to even lift her legs to run away. She just stood fixed in place like a fool who had wandered straight into a trap, as if her cooperation could win her the pity of her opponent. Fortunately, Xiaqing was thinking the same thing. His gaze went past Lan Shi, looking at the plants behind her as his face twisted in distress. But resigning himself to the inevitable, he took a deep breath and answered Lan Shi's question in a dry, doomed-sounding voice. For example, hoping there weren't so many people who liked you and coveted your looks, hoping there weren't so many people who noticed your good points, hoping there weren't so many people surrounding you. Hoping that when you encounter difficulties, I'm the first person you think to turn to for help. Hoping that your marriage proposal to Xia Yunfei fails, hoping that he rejects you, even hoping that you feel heartbroken and devastated. Why? Conquering Xia Yunfei was her most important mission. How could Xiaqing inwardly wish for her failure with such dark thoughts? Lan Shi felt a little angry and vaguely resentful. Why would you want me to feel heartbroken and devastated? Xiaqing seemed unwilling to answer this question, yet after holding it in for half a day, he still gave a bad-tempered response. Why? Because that way, when you feel heartbroken I can comfort you, letting you know what a scumbag Xia Yunfei is and how good I am. I want you to be able to compare and clearly see who you should be liking instead. Having said this much, Xiaqing paused before adding, I've never disliked Xia Yunfei more in my life. He glanced at Lan Shi. It's because I like you that I dislike him. Seeing you with Xia Yunfei makes me feel irritable and furious. I can't even sleep well or work properly, it's severely disrupting my normal life. That is the negative emotion that liking someone brings. Although she now knew the answer, Lan Shi felt even more out of sorts than before. Her whole being seemed to grow even stranger, assailed by doubts, nervousness, exhilaration and some inexplicable smugness. She felt as if she had gotten hold of an incredible secret on Earth that no one in the guidebook had ever explored, one that only she and the entire universe knew. Still, numerous questions sprang to mind amidst the mess of emotions buffeting her. If liking someone has so many side effects, wouldn't it be better to not like someone instead? As the first Moying Star person to have discovered human secret, not to mention an imperial princess, Lan Shi felt obliged to document the finer details of humans' concept of liking someone and update the guidebook. That would enable more Moying Star people in the future to take shortcuts and swiftly conquer humans. Therefore, despite the complex turmoil roiling inside, Lan Shi braced herself against the odd palpitations, struggling to steady her heartbeat. She conducted her research dutifully and professionally. Xiaqing looked a little helpless. I wish I could. Lan Shi took out a notebook. Can it be cured? Xiaqing froze in shock. What are you doing? I want to take notes. I'm confessing my feelings here. Lan Shi. Xiaqing felt that it was a medical miracle he hadn't been angered to death. How could there be such an oblivious woman? Was her emotional quotient inversely proportional to her beauty? Xiaqing felt everything was going disastrously wrong. He had warned himself not to confess, yet Lan Shi's blank expression and brief questions made him completely abandon his plans. Chagrined and furious, he blurted everything out in one breath. For the first time in his life, Xiaqing, usually so familiar with the rules of human society, had become awkward and flustered while Lan Shi remained composed and normal. It was as if their roles had reversed, all test NOVL on novelben/.cm. Lan Shi said matter-of-factly, I know. This is the first time I've received a confession, so I want to document everything. So, is there any cure for your condition? Lan Shi asked earnestly. I want to know the treatment methods to help more people in the future if I can. You don't need to help more people, just helping me is enough, Xiaqing said, again acting on some perverse impulse. There is a cure, but I'll need your cooperation. What do I need to do? Xiaqing cleared his throat, his voice a little odd. If you break up with Xie Yunfei and date me instead, if you stay by my side, then I think it would slowly get better. Not waiting for Lan Shi's reply, he quickly added, after all, I've never had this reaction before either, so I'm still figuring things out. But based on what others say, that should just about do it. Xiaqing looked very sincere. Lan Shi wanted to help him, he had selflessly aided her many times after all, and he even said he liked her. But just as Lan Shi was considering agreeing, Xiaqing spoke again. Liking someone can be one-sided, but a relationship needs mutual liking between both people. I like you and want to date you, but I have to make it clear, becoming boyfriend and girlfriend, falling in love, requires you to like me back. I know it might be a little difficult for you to sort out these emotions, that you might need more time and exploration. But I'm willing to wait. I also know that given your abnormality in handling interpersonal and emotional relationships, it would be very easy for me to trick you if I wanted. But I don't want that. I just feel Xie Yunfei is scum who doesn't deserve you. Xiaqing paused before reluctantly adding, although even if he was outstanding, I still wouldn't want him to be with you. Because you don't even like him. Xiaqing glared at Lan Shi. If you search your heart, you'll realize who's more suited to be your romantic partner. Although Xiaqing left things at that, even Lan Shi, usually oblivious to humans' unspoken subtext, sensed that the words "the one suited for you is me" were practically plastered across Xiaqing's forehead. Was that true? But the guidebook. Where did you get that rubbish guidebook anyway? Wasn't it published ages ago, in 2003? The stuff recorded in there must be outdated by now, right? Is that why you can't conquer Earth and humans by relying on it? Bring it out! Who published that kind of nonsense meant to torment people? I'll refute it point by point. In this age of information overload, all kinds of tutorials were being published, not just cooking and baking guides but even those teaching people how to date and maintain marriages. Given how Lan Shi kept harping on her guidebook, it was likely one of those scam guides targeted at swindling money from autistic people or those with social disabilities, claiming to teach social skills. Lan Shi had never considered this issue before. She was suddenly at a loss for words. The Guidebook for Conquering Humans, it truly was the 2003 version, published 20 years ago. Could the information recorded in it really be outdated? Was that why she couldn't conquer Earth and humans by relying on it? But as for what you said about Qingyin developing better than Qingxin and earning more money, that's not true at all. Qingyin was originally founded by my parents too. It's currently controlled by Xie Jing, but he doesn't understand operations. Qingyin looks huge in scale but is actually operating at a loss with no profitability if you look at the financial statements. On the other hand, our Qingxin is poised to benefit greatly from the new weather analytical software we just launched. The corners of Xie Chang's lips turned up wryly. So I'll have more money than Xie Yunfei in the future. Now, who's better looking between me and Xie Yunfei? The answer was obvious. Lan Shi swiftly pointed at Xiaqing. You. Who has the better physique between me and Xie Yunfei? You. Who has more money between me and Xie Yunfei? You. Then between me and Xie Yunfei, who would you rather have as your boyfriend? Without thinking, Lan Shi gave the same knee-jerk response. You. Lan Shi finished answering, realized she had fallen into a trap, and hurriedly closed her mouth, staring warily at Xia Qing. Xia Qing finally relaxed, almost wanting to laugh. Perhaps the normal way of handling things is completely useless for socially awkward people like Lan Shi. Xia Qing seemed to regain his home turf, emerging from his previous anger and irritation, his tone becoming calmer and more composed. Are you very nervous now? Is your heart beating fast? You dislike me a little, but you also find me quite good. You often get angry at me, but you don't want to break off relations with me. Whenever you encounter difficulties, the first person you think of is me. Whenever something good happens, I'm also the first person you want to share it with. At first Lan Shi was somewhat stunned, then her slightly widened eyes revealed an unbelieving expression of being accurately guessed, making everything self-evident. Xia Qing did not expect that this reaction alone would make his previous anger, irritation, resentment and jealousy vanish without a trace. He looked into Lan Shi's eyes. Lan Shi, this is what liking someone means. Xia Qing enunciated word for word, you also like me. The Guide to Conquering Earthlings describes exhaustive methods of conquest in several chapters, but does not mention at all what the premise of conquest is. Xia Qing said two people being together must like each other. Like? Under Xia Qing's gaze, Lan Shi felt utterly exposed. She subconsciously put her hand over her chest, as if to prevent her rapidly beating heart from escaping her chest. Does being nervous, timid, afraid, irritable, resentful and jealous come from the side effects that liking someone brings? Lan Shi was not certain. She understood everything about the Moying star, had learned all Moying's knowledge, and was confident that she had mastered the guide, yet in the face of the complexity of Earthlings' emotions, she was like a confused elementary school student. Did she like Xia Qing? Did Xia Qing also like her? But I'm completely different from you. She looked up at Xia Qing, genuinely confused and bothered inside. Our interests and habits are different, our behavior is different, just my appetite alone is completely different from yours, and I'm also much stronger than you. Our identities differ even more extremely. You look completely at ease socially, but I haven't even received an entry-level invitation card. I also don't understand implied meanings, and I'm even literally an alien, like an alien. Can two such completely different people develop feelings of liking each other? Lan Shi coughed and added, don't you think we're from two different planets? Also, doesn't everyone on Earth prefer gentle, pretty, understanding, smart girls who know how to handle people, with hidden strengths and good at dancing? But I seem to sometimes become out of place with everyone. This sounded like a silly question. Lan Shi regretted it as soon as she asked. She didn't expect Xia Qing to answer seriously either. However, to her surprise, after brief contemplation, Xia Qing spoke up, you really are very special, and completely different from me, but the reason you are you is precisely because you are unique, so you are irreplaceable. His voice was gentler than ever, yet his tone was decisive. There are many people with qualities like being gentle, pretty, understanding, but what makes each person different from others isn't these beautiful traits, on the contrary, it is some flaws that you think you possess. You may not fit in with anything, but this shows that you are not easily changed by your environment. The materialistic life has not eroded your true nature either, you still persist in being yourself, and I feel this is a very valuable quality. I know your understanding of liking someone can be a bit slow, but please give me a chance to accompany you, wait for you, protect you, and explore and perceive liking together with you. This time, Xia Qing put down all pretense and excessive pride. He stood devoutly in front of Lan Shi, not as the founder of Qinxin technology, but just himself, a man confessing his feelings to the girl he likes, an ordinary humble person. So don't use any guidebooks anymore. Guidebooks can't give you any guidance. Why don't you come directly experience it personally? Use your own experience to write a truly useful guidebook for others? Xiaqing cradled Lanqi's face in his hands. Lanqi, don't try to conquer Xie Yunfei anymore. Come try to conquer me instead. According to the records in the Guide to Conquering Earthlings, Earth people's close combat abilities are inferior compared to the Mui star people. They lack strength and are a fragile species, posing no threat to Lanqi, a Mui star being. Lanqi used to firmly believe in this, but at this moment, her past beliefs are facing a breaking point. Is it really so? But now her own condition is incredibly terrible. Using the place where Xiaqing touched her cheek as a pivot, it starts to become scorching hot, as if the heat is contagious. It spreads rapidly across Lanqi's face like a wildfire, to the extent that she has a sensation that her head is about to burst into flames. The situation of her heart is even worse and more severe. The chaotic and rapid rhythm has made Lanqi feel completely out of control, to the point where no medication can restore it to a normal beating frequency. Her respiratory system seems to be facing a great dilemma as well. Her breath becomes rapid, even though there is no significant physical exertion. The oxygen demand in her body seems to multiply, making the once normal air feel thin. The strangest thing is an abrupt sense of timidity and uneasiness, so intense that she has never experienced it before. Even when facing natural enemies like cats, Lanqi is sure she has never felt like this. So, are Earth people really fragile? Lanqi doesn't think so. Earthlings clearly possess hidden skills. They are more cunning than cats, the natural enemies of the Mui star people. Especially Xiaqing, the Earthling in front of her. Lanqi feels that he is much more dangerous than a cat. It's as if he can disarm her heart without shedding a drop of blood, merely by moving his lips, shaking Lanqi to her core. Her mission is to conquer Earth. According to Wang Jiqiang's words, conquering Xie Yunfei would be a more effective route to conquer Earth. Yet, Xiaqing is now requesting her to conquer him with that look in his eyes and that tone of voice. Lanqi should have been ruthless and resolute in rejecting him, but when it comes down to it, she finds that she doesn't want to refuse deep down. She even feels a sense of relief. Conquering Xie Yunfei doesn't stir any ripples in her heart, the conquest process doesn't seem difficult at all. But not having to conquer him, Lanqi feels as if a burden has been lifted. In retrospect, she realizes that she doesn't have much desire to conquer Xie Yunfei. When she originally set out to conquer Xiaqing, she was full of enthusiasm and passion. Now that the target has switched to Xie Yunfei, Lanqi indeed lacks interest. However, directly changing the predetermined conquering plan, Lanqi is torn. Fortunately, the guide has a solution for this situation. Lanqi makes an effort to suppress her emotions, steadies her mind, and tries to concentrate, shielding herself from Xiaqing's gaze. In the end, she manages to squeeze out a dry sentence. I need to think about it. Fortunately, Xiaqing doesn't further pressurize her. He nods and doesn't impose any immediate pressure on Lanqi for an answer. But it's clear that this man still wants something. He ponders for a moment and says, "You can take your time to consider. I won't force you to give me an answer right away. But shouldn't we switch back to dealing with Qing Xin? That's not possible. I just transferred to Qing'an." Lanqi almost immediately refused Xiaqing. Besides, I haven't decided yet on changing my conquest target. I'll make that decision after I've made up my mind. Indeed, she was only getting close to Xie Yunfei and gradually developing feelings for him in order to cultivate a relationship. That's why she was transferred to his side. Now, there's no need to leave immediately. Moreover, you said you wouldn't rush me and that you would wait for me, right? Well, I haven't made up my mind yet. Don't rush me. The decision of conquering someone is a significant one. It may take me a month or even several months to make up my mind. After all, it should be done carefully, right? I've been working in Qingshin for a while now, and I've had the experiences I should have there. I've spent more time with you, so in fairness, shouldn't I also work in Qing'an for a while and spend more time with Xie Yunfei? Fortunately, after receiving this response, Xiaqing seemed persuaded. He didn't say anything else, just nodded. All right, let me know when you want to transfer back to Qingshin. Xiaqing smiled, looking quite confident. He glanced at Lan Shi with a complex expression. I believe it won't take long. Before Lan Shi could respond, Xiaqing changed the topic. Now, I'll take you back to the dormitory. Great! But the issue of the cat, the natural enemy in Xiaqing's villa, still hadn't been resolved. Lan Shi thought for a moment and grabbed Xiaqing's hand. I want to hold your hand. Xiaqing was momentarily stunned but didn't refuse. He glanced at Lan Shi and spoke in a low voice, okay. Almost as soon as she received his consent, Lan Shi tightly held onto Xiaqing's arm, gripping his hand. Her body unconsciously leaned closer to him, as if she wanted to merge with him. This feeling was inexplicable. Although she instinctively felt that Xiaqing was even more dangerous than the cat, in critical moments, she couldn't help but seek protection and a sense of security from him. Fortunately, this time, Xiaqing didn't ask any questions that would make Lan Shi nervous and uneasy. He quietly allowed her to cling to him, like a koala, and led her to the garage. However, perhaps because of Lan Shi's behavior, Xiaqing's footsteps became unusually slow. The time it took to ride the elevator to the underground garage of Xiaqing's villa was more than 3 times longer than usual. Once they sat in the car and the cat crisis was resolved, Lan Shi immediately let go of Xiaqing's hand and heaved a sigh of relief. For some reason, Xiaqing's expression showed a hint of regret, but it quickly disappeared, making Lan Shi doubt whether she had seen it correctly. Xiaqing fastened her seatbelt and started the car. On the way, he had a gentle tone and a natural attitude, chatting with Lan Shi about topics that didn't make her feel awkward. Are you satisfied with the employee dormitory? Very satisfied. Lan Shi was extremely satisfied with the employee dormitory. The dormitory in Qingshin was newly built and very close to both Qingshin and Qing'an. Since Lan Shi learned the online shopping skills of Earth people, she had bought many things and even planted a row of plants. Xiaqing was quite attentive, knowing and caring about this. As she spoke, Lan Shi couldn't help but feel elated. Xiaqing patiently listened as Lan Shi spoke. He safely escorted her to the entrance of her dormitory building. It wasn't until Lan Shi reached her apartment and looked out of the hallway window that she noticed Xiaqing's car hadn't immediately left. He only confirmed his departure after she turned on the lights, ensuring her safety. That's good. At least she had taken control of the situation. Since Xiaqing had promised to wait, Lan Shi decided to set aside her troubles for tomorrow. And after tomorrow, there would still be the day after that. She could slowly savor her feelings for Xiaqing and make a final decision. Lan Shi fell into a restful sleep, and as luck would have it, good news found her when she was in high spirits the next day. She eagerly settled into the office that Xie Yunfei had assigned her and opened her email, only to receive exhilarating news. The email was sent by a new administrative staff member, informing Lan Shi that there had recently been a lottery prize draw held by Qingshin. According to the employee ID system, Lan Shi had been selected for the first prize, a voucher for a year's worth of deluxe hotel dinner buffets. At the end of the email, the administrative colleague added a note in bold letters: "Please contact us as soon as possible for redemption." A whole year of deluxe hotel dinner buffets. Indeed. It was rightfully hers. Wasn't it just like the prize she should have won at the beachcombing competition but ended up back in her own pocket? Lan Shi, full of excitement, went to redeem the voucher as instructed, but she encountered a setback. "I'm sorry, Lan Shi. After verifying through the system, you don't meet our winning requirements," the administrative colleague said with a regretful expression. "Since it's a voucher for a year's worth of dinners, it requires you to be an on-duty employee of Qingxin for the entire year. You have already transferred to Qing'an and don't meet the redemption criteria." The administrative colleague's explanation flowed smoothly, as if it had been memorized. After looking at Lan Shi, she continued, "Unless you transfer back to Qingxin, in which case the dinner buffet voucher can be valid." It was a whole year of buffet dinners. Lan Shi was tempted, but she wanted to experience more with Xie Yunfei. If you have someone you like in Qing'an and want to pursue them, you don't necessarily have to appear in front of them every day. After all, there's a saying that goes, absence makes the heart grow fonder. Seeing each other every day can make you take it for granted, but occasionally not seeing each other intensifies the longing and deepens the connection, the administrative colleague continued effortlessly. Distance breeds beauty, and once there's distance, if you both miss each other, it naturally becomes a test of this relationship. Lan Shi couldn't help but sigh. Qingxin was indeed full of hidden potential. This administrative colleague seemed to know her innermost thoughts, effortlessly resolving her dilemma with just a few words. Meanwhile, the colleague delivered the final blow, saying, "So, are you going to transfer back? Your previous transfer to Qing'an hasn't completed the approval process yet. If you transfer back now, all you need to do is apply for the cancellation of the process, and I can help you with that." She smiled at Lan Shi. After all, it's a year's worth of deluxe buffet dinners. You have no idea how sumptuous the dinner buffet at this hotel is. Without waiting for Lan Shi to respond, she continued as if she suddenly remembered something, saying, "Oh, by the way, I forgot to inform you. You have to move out of the employee dormitory in Qingxin within 3 days. After all, if you transfer to Qing'an, it would be more convenient for management if you live in Qing'an's dormitory. Besides, we have had quite a few applications for employee dormitories in Qingxin recently." How could this be possible? Although Qing'an also has employee dormitories, those buildings are quite old, and the location is very far from the workplace. Lan Shi didn't want to move away at all. However, if you continue to work in Qingxin, these won't be a problem. As a long-time employee, you can still use the previous employee dormitory, she said. Lan Shi didn't have any hesitation left. She made up her mind and said, "I want to transfer back to Qingxin." "No problem." Lan Shi was deeply moved. She didn't know this administrative colleague well, but they were so friendly and enthusiastic. She sincerely said, "Thank you. You're amazing. Earth people can be so sincere. Look at this colleague." Unfortunately, Lan Shi didn't know that as soon as she turned around and left, the friendly and professional administrative colleague looked at her back and smiled, covering her mouth. "Why thank me? The person you should thank is me." It wasn't in vain that she memorized those lines like she did just now. However, this Lan Shi seems to have real competence at work, otherwise, why would Chang's manager go to great lengths to keep her in Qingxin? In any case, she successfully completed her task. She hummed a song and picked up her phone to compose a text message, "Manager Chang, it's done. So, about the bonus you mentioned." It was surprising that the procedures to transfer to Qing'an were so troublesome. Although Lan Shi had been working in Qing'an for a while, the procedures were not completed, yet the procedures to transfer back to Qingxin unexpectedly went quickly. 2 hours later, Lan Shi received a call from the kind-hearted administrative colleague, informing her that everything was settled, and she could return to work in Qingxin and collect the buffet coupons. Lan Shi wanted to see Xia Qing and tell him about her decision to come back to work, but unfortunately, Xia Qing was out visiting clients. He wasn't in the office, and Lan Shi felt a bit down because her joy of receiving the buffet coupons suddenly vanished for some reason. Fortunately, everyone was happy about Lan Shi's return. Liang Di showed great enthusiasm, and Wan Yan was even more enthusiastic. "This is fantastic, Lan Shi. I've been looking forward to your return," Liang Di said. Just as Liang Di returned to her own seat to handle emails, Wan Yan immediately ran over to Lan Shi's desk and handed her a cup of milk tea. "I just bought this milk tea. It's for you. I'll buy another one for myself later." Lan Shi was touched by Wan Yan's friendship. Thinking that she had misunderstood her before, Lan Shi felt even more guilty. Wan Yan and Lan Shi were casually chatting about recent events, and naturally, the conversation turned to work. Wan Yan's enthusiastic expression suddenly turned serious and restrained as she said, "Things have been going well lately, but I have a bit too much work on my plate right now. There's an important original document that needs to be personally delivered to a client. The client's company is located in the suburbs, so making the round trip would definitely leave me with an overwhelming workload. I'll have to work late into the night tonight." It was Lan Shi's first day at Chengxin Company, and she hadn't been assigned any tasks yet. Hearing Wan Yan's distress, she felt compelled to offer her help. "Can I deliver the document for you?" Lan Shi asked. Wan Yan immediately showed a grateful expression and said, "That would be wonderful. Lan Shi, you're so kind. I'll treat you to lunch tomorrow." Lan Shi nodded happily. Helping each other out among colleagues was only natural. Without delay, Lan Shi received the document from Wan Yan and prepared to set off. However, before leaving, she specifically grabbed an umbrella. Although the sky outside was clear at the moment, there would be a heavy rainstorm in 2 hours, and the suburbs were known to experience more intense rainfall. Once Lan Shi's figure completely disappeared in the elevator, Wan Yan finally breathed a sigh of relief. She had been troubled by the relationship between Lan Shi and Xie Qing. But who would have thought that not long ago, Lan Shi had applied for an internal transfer to Qing'an. Afterward, rumors began circulating about her and Xie Yunfei's passionate affair. More than one colleague had witnessed their intimate interactions. It seemed that Lan Shi had changed her strategy, probably because Xie Qing had seen through her tricks and she couldn't conquer him, so she sought someone else. However, Lan Shi's voluntary departure was a great thing. During the days that Lan Shi was absent from Chengxin, Wan Yan went all out, trying every trick in the book. She actively asked Xie Qing out for meals, gave him fruits, showed concern for him, and sent him messages morning and night. In short, she exhausted all her means, but none of it worked. Xie Qing treated her with politeness and friendliness, but it stopped there. Just as Wan Yan was preparing to come up with another plan to conquer Xie Qing, she never expected Lan Shi to suddenly make a comeback. What did she want to do? Had she failed to conquer Xie Yunfei and now wanted to return to the familiar territory? Wan Yan felt a sense of annoyance and amusement at the same time. Everyone knew that Xie Qing was proud, and even if he had shown some interest in Lan Shi before, her current back-and-forth approach wouldn't make him give her a second glance. However, Lan Shi's return was actually quite good for Wan Yan. After all, it could highlight her unwavering and deep affection for Xie Qing. Excellence had to be displayed. Although she thought this way, Wan Yan couldn't help but feel a subconscious nervousness. After all, she had managed to successfully invite Xie Qing out for dinner tonight under the pretense of discussing and verifying work data, and she didn't want any unexpected complications. By sending Lan Shi far away to the outskirts to deliver the materials, she wouldn't be able to return before the end of the workday, and it would be impossible for her to run into Xie Qing when he returned to the company. Everything was foolproof. Lan Shi had to send the document to a client's company that was quite far away. It took her nearly an hour and a half in a taxi to finally arrive. The handover process at the other end was strict, requiring multiple people to verify the original documents. By the time everything was done, it was already close to the end of the workday, and during rush hour, it was impossible to hail a taxi. The nearest subway station was 3 kilometers away from this company, so Lanshi had no choice but to hurry to the subway station. She needed to be quick because although it wasn't mentioned in the weather forecast, a heavy rainstorm was about to hit. However, Lanshi was just a step too late. As soon as she started walking towards the subway station, thunder rumbled, and the rain poured down without warning. Although she had brought an umbrella in anticipation, it was of little use against such a massive downpour. With a slight misjudgment in direction and force, the strong wind turned the umbrella inside out, making the entire frame fragile. Lanshi was immediately drenched in rain. After a few more attempts, she was completely soaked. All test NOVL on novelben/.cm. The torrential rain and strong wind made her progress even slower. Lanshi's vision was blurred by the rain, and she was looking up, trying to calculate how much distance was left when a black luxury car slowly stopped beside her. Someone hurriedly got out of the driver's seat. He was wearing a black suit, and almost as soon as he stepped out of the car, his pants were splashed with mud, and his expensive, shiny handmade leather shoes were instantly dirted. However, he didn't hesitate for a moment. Lanshi watched as he opened an umbrella, shielding his face, revealing only a sharply defined jawline and slightly downturned lips, as if carrying a hint of displeasure. Yet, his steps were resolute and urgent. The road on this side of the industrial park was low-lying, and the drainage system was poor. This unprecedented rainstorm quickly flooded the road, filling it with dirty water and floating leaves. Nothing about this man's appearance matched the environment. The cuffs he revealed were adorned with diamonds, and his wristwatch was a well-known expensive brand even Lanshi could recognize. His cold white skin exuded a refined coldness, contrasting with the dreary and rainy surroundings. Nevertheless, he stepped into this storm without hesitation, which didn't belong to him, and walked toward Lanshi with the umbrella held high. It was Xia Cheng. Just a few steps later, his pants were completely soaked, yet he didn't even pause. He quickly approached Lanshi, carrying a scent of coldness that blended with the rain, giving off a different kind of allure, a dampness that stirred the heart. The umbrella in Lanshi's hand had already started falling apart in the heavy wind and rain, but as Xia Cheng approached, the rain above her suddenly seemed to stop. Lanshi looked up and discovered that the umbrella, which originally belonged to Xia Cheng, was now firmly held above her head. However, half of his body was exposed to the pouring rain. Xia Cheng's tall figure stood in front of Lanshi, creating a temporary shelter from the wind and rain. Even though the rain and thunder were still loud around them, Lanshi felt as if she was floating into a dream. Her feet felt as though they were stepping on soft marshmallows. Being a Mui star person, Lanshi was far stronger than Earthlings and not afraid of storms or harsh living conditions. So, despite the inconvenience of being in the rain earlier, she didn't feel sorry for herself or miserable. But what she couldn't understand was why, now that she saw Xia Cheng, who was providing her with shelter and even brought an umbrella, she started to feel a strange emotion. Her nose became slightly sour, and her eyes began to moisten. She actually felt like crying. In the heavy rain, Xia Cheng remained silent. He protected Lanshi with a serious expression, like a gentleman, and opened the car door for her. He only returned to the driver's seat after ensuring that Lanshi was seated. As the closed car door finally blocked out the tremendous sound of rain outside, Xia Cheng turned on the car's heating. Before Lanshi could react, a fluffy blanket was thrown into her lap. "Wipe yourself dry," Xia Cheng said. Holding the small blanket, Lanshi looked at Xia Cheng and asked, "What about you?" Xia Cheng waved his hand dismissively. "I don't need it. I'm not delicate." Lanshi pouted. "I'm not delicate either." "You wouldn't have almost cried if you weren't delicate." Xia Cheng glanced at her. "Do you know what you looked like just now?" Like a little pig being rescued from a flood, with an excited and aggrieved expression, as if you were accusing me of why did you take so long? That's not. She tried to defend herself. I didn't cry. It's just that the rain was heavy, and the broken umbrella let the rain hit my eyes. The pollution on Earth is severe, and that rain was acid rain. Ah, acid rain. Xiaqing started the car. After a moment, he couldn't help but glance at Lan Shi. Although the weather forecast didn't predict rain, you brought an umbrella in advance, which means you expected it to rain. So why didn't you bring a better umbrella? Or you could have directly applied for a company car from the administrative department. It's a normal requirement for work. But the company's official cars can only be requested if there's a presence of middle and senior management. It's a policy you set. She dried her hair. The heating made her feel warm all over, but for some reason, even though the temperature was just right, she now felt slightly overheated. She had ridden in Xiaqing's car before, so being alone with him should have been comfortable, but at this moment, she felt somewhat constrained and nervous, and her face felt as if it were on fire. I set that rule? Xiaqing paused for a moment, as if he couldn't remember ever making such a rule. He rubbed his temples and glanced at his drenched and disheveled appearance in the rearview mirror. His tone was decisive. Then we'll change it when we get back. It's not necessary. She tilted her head and pondered. I think it's reasonable. Otherwise, if there's widespread misuse of the company vehicle, it wouldn't be conducive to management. It's still better than the boss misusing it. Huh? Xiaqing focused on the road ahead, his expression calm and composed, but his ears turned slightly red. He explained seriously, if the business vehicle is not available to you, then in the end, I'll have to personally pick you up and drop you off. So, technically, there's no misuse of the business vehicle, but the boss is misusing me. As soon as the word boss was mentioned, Xiaqing seemed to recall something, and his tone became stern. You should inform me more about your schedule during work. Delivering documents wasn't originally your job, so why did you take over Wang Yan's task? I had some free time in the afternoon, and I saw that Wang Yan was really busy, so I thought I could help. She felt wronged. Wasn't she doing her best for the company? Yet, Xiaqing criticized her. Next time, tell me privately. It'll be easier for me to arrange work. Xiaqing's voice sounded somewhat unnatural. He cleared his throat. Besides, if Liang Di hadn't mentioned it to me after I returned to the company today, I wouldn't have known that you had gone so far alone to deliver the documents. Luckily, I'm observant. Xiaqing's voice was steady, but his words made Shi's heart race faster. Liang Di casually mentioned that you even brought an umbrella when there wasn't much sun, so I guessed it would rain today. Shi didn't dare to look at Xiaqing. She sat up straight, but couldn't help stealing a glance at him through the rearview mirror. Unfortunately, the other passenger in the car seemed to have the same idea. In the end, Shi and Xiaqing's gazes unexpectedly met in the mirror, catching each other in the act. Shi immediately averted her eyes as if shocked by an electric shock. She felt flustered and instinctively tried to change the topic. Why did you also think it would rain? According to the company's weather app and the forecast, there was no rain today. Because I have a lot of experience getting caught in the rain. Xiaqing's voice was muffled, as if he was recalling an unpleasant experience, showing a hint of helplessness. Last time, you thought it would rain, but I didn't listen, and in the end, I learned my lesson. But aren't you afraid that last time I was just guessing, and the forecast was actually wrong? I'd rather believe it's true. Xiaqing paused for a moment, then added somewhat awkwardly, because you went all the way out there alone, I'd rather believe it's true than leave you alone in the rain. Well, for me, it's just a drive over. Even if it didn't pour like this, you've already returned to Qingxin and become an employee again. The boss occasionally gives returning employees a welcome gift and some small perks. Personally coming to pick you up is not unreasonable. At this moment, the traffic light was red. Xiaqing parked the car and seemed restless. He tugged at his tie, the redness on his ears had faded, but his cheeks had turned slightly red. Unable to resist, he glanced at Lan Shi, who was in the passenger seat, and said, "Besides being an employee, your boss also expects you to take on other responsibilities." His gaze made Xiaqing pause. "Lan Shi, why is your face so red? Did you catch a cold from getting soaked in the rain? Are you already running a fever?" As he spoke, he quickly reached out and touched Lan Shi's forehead. Lan Shi couldn't react in time but felt the warmth and sensation from Xiaqing's palm. Who said she had a fever? She was perfectly fine. It was Xiaqing whose palm felt so hot, as though he had a fever. Despite knowing she should calm down, Lan Shi couldn't. Xiaqing was so close, in this confined space, filled with his masculine cologne that infiltrated every pore of her body. It felt like diligent guards surrounding her, making her limbs weak, her nose sweaty, and she wanted nothing more than to surrender. She really should update the Earthlings' Guide to Conquest. The version from 20 years ago was truly outdated. There was a species on Earth more dangerous than cats, and that was cunning Earthlings. They would lure you with an image of kindness, gentleness, and being a gentleman, and then... Lan Shi suddenly stumbled over her words. What would Xiaqing do next? She realized she had no idea. Xiaqing, if I were to conquer you, what would you do? Xiaqing stared at Lan Shi in disbelief, his expression unfathomable, until the honking sound of the car behind them reached their ears. It was only then that he snapped out of it. The traffic light had already turned green. Although he was a skilled and experienced driver, Xiaqing became flustered in that moment. He even stalled the engine once before restarting it amidst the honking, and they proceeded through the intersection. However, the smooth ride didn't last long. Before reaching the second intersection, Xiaqing deviated from the navigation and drove into a small alley, parking by the side and turning on the hazard lights. He loosened his tie, appearing somewhat nervous. This time, his gaze didn't turn to Lan Shi. Instead, he stared at the empty road ahead and said, "If you were to conquer me right now, I wouldn't resist at all. I would let myself be conquered." Just like that? That couldn't be true. Lan Shi mustered up her inquisitive spirit and asked, "What happens after that? What would you do afterward?" If two people conquer each other, it means they establish a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship. So, what comes next? After becoming boyfriend and girlfriend, it's a romantic relationship. We would date and do everything that couples do. So, what do couples do? Couples spend time together, share with each other, and think of each other as a priority. Couples hold hands. As Xiaqing said this, he reached out and held Lan Shi's hand, interlocking their fingers. They gazed deeply into each other's eyes. He looked deeply into Lan Shi's eyes, cradling her face, making it impossible for her gaze to evade his. There's also kissing. As his words fell, Xiaqing unbuckled his seatbelt and leaned forward, planting a kiss on Lan Shi's nose. Just like this. Although he seemed prepared and knowledgeable about the process, Xiaqing appeared uneasy after the actual kiss. His gaze started to wander, avoiding direct eye contact with Lan Shi. Fortunately, this action relieved Lan Shi's tension because her heart was pounding in her throat. She couldn't bring herself to look directly at Xiaqing, but her mouth acted against her will, blurting out a question. Why do other couples kiss on the lips, and you kiss on the nose? Xiaqing lowered his head, his voice deep and low. Because I need your consent and confirmation of our relationship. After all, you haven't officially agreed to be with me. You said if. Lon, she nodded. Then she suddenly thought of a question. So, once we become a couple, will you sleep with me? Is sleeping together beneficial for you? Does it help solidify our conquering relationship? This was indeed a topic that intrigued Lan Shi. According to the Earthling Conquest Guide, Earth men enjoyed sleeping together, and they would even take responsibility for you afterward. However, this knowledge seemed ineffective when it came to Xia Qing. He had even sternly lectured Lan Shi about it, but with Xia Yunfei, it appeared to be quite effective. So, whether sleeping together was useful or not, Lan Shi was very puzzled. However, it seemed that this was a difficult question to answer, as Xia Qing was clearly stumped. He looked extremely embarrassed. Lan Shi tried to be considerate. You don't want to sleep together, right? But this time, Xia Qing quickly interrupted her words. No. His correction was firm and resolute. However, after uttering those two words, he pursed his lips as if finding it difficult to speak any further, as if he didn't want to let a single word slip from his lips. Then, I'm a normal man, so of course, I have desires. I really like you, so sleeping together is naturally beneficial for me and helps strengthen our relationship. Xia Qing stiffened his neck, appearing reluctant to broach this subject. But he also seemed compelled to face it. I understand that sexual intimacy is important for both love and marriage. It's natural for progressive women to address this topic. However, I hope you can rest assured that I do want to sleep with you. Sexual intimacy? Wasn't that just a passing mention of human reproductive methods in the guide? That's all for this part, trekkers. See you all in the next video.